My 31M girlfriend, 29F, has a locked room in her house. I don't know what is in it. My girlfriend Amy and I have been tougher for 5 years and we are planning on moving in together into her home when my lease is up in 2 months. Our relationship is great, we have arguments but no often and we always resolve them like rational people. Amy owns a house and she bought it about 10 years ago. The city we live in was depressed for a while, picture Detroit but not, where if you were so inclined you could buy a big house in a bad neighborhood for a song and dance and then fix it up and hope the neighborhood would come around, which is luckily what happened to her. It's a big old Victorian house with 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. Usually, we hung out at my apartment since it was near her work and I don't have a car to get out to her place, but some weekends here and there I would spend the night. When my job went remote 5 months ago, I started spending a lot more time at her place. It wasn't until after a month I realized the one room upstairs has a latch with a padlock on it. I thought it was really weird that it was a padlock and not just a door lock. I mentioned it to her and she just said yeah, I really don't go in that room or use it. What? I mean, I get that it's a big home and she lived in it alone for a long time so she didn't need the space, but to padlock it like that? I asked her what was in it and she shrugged and said stuff like it was no big deal. I asked if we could open it since maybe that would be a good space for my home office and she said no. Now I'm really curious and it's actually sort of eating away at me. I don't care what is in the room, I just honestly don't get why it is padlocked shut. That's weird, right? Am I being unreasonable since I'm moving in? I understand the right to privacy and I wouldn't snoop, and couldn't if I wanted to. You couldn't even tell from the outside since it's on the 2nd floor. I've been sort of paying attention now if she goes in there or not and I don't think she ever does. I feel like since I'm moving in I have a right to know, but do I? I don't want to make her open it but she's so nonchalant about it and changes the subject that my mind keeps running away with me about what could be in there. I'm just wondering what other people think, what I should do and if I'm being unreasonable wanting to know what is in this padlocked room or if I don't have a right to. Our relationship is amazing and perfect except for this one really weird issue. TLDR moving in a girlfriend who has a padlocked shut room she never goes in and she won't open it. Relevant top comments. Here is my update. I never did figure out how to post it. Hello Reddit. I promised an update to my prior post in this sub. Sorry for no link, I'm on mobile so not sure how to link it, but if you look in my post history it's the only on there. I would have posted early but I needed some time to digest things. I had a long talk with my girlfriend when she got home from work in the morning about the locked room. She tried to blow it off a few times and get out of the conversation until I told her I couldn't move in until she told me what was in the room and I saw it for myself. I told her I didn't care what was in there. After posting here I was more and more convinced that it was probably guns or something related to her work in law enforcement, as that really did make a lot of sense. Eventually she just broke down sobbing, big giant ugly sobs like I have never seen before. It was pretty shocking. She's not really a crier. It took a good 15 minutes before she could even start forming words that I could understand between giant sobs. It was absolutely heartbreaking to see and I knew as soon as she started crying that it wasn't a room full of guns or work stuff. Actually, the room is empty. There is nothing in there. Someone had surmised in the comments of the other post that maybe there was some trauma. I forgot who it was but unfortunately, they were correct. She was basically a kid at 19 when she bought the house, like I said, bad neighborhood, fixer-upper, etc., and it was dirt cheap due to the city she lived in and those other factors. She had always been smart with money so she had a big down payment and was planning on taking the rest of her savings to fix it up. I don't want to get specific with details as it's pretty gruesome and also privacy, but in her 3rd week living there she had a home invasion while she was home in that room and she was assaulted. She had no money to move and no family around so she stayed in the home after buying a security system and locking the door up and planning to just never unlock it and basically never go on that room again. So there you have it. I seriously was not expecting that at all and it has been a long week for her and I feel terrible I made her tell me but she says that she's glad I know now. She never told me before because she didn't want to, which I totally respect. Also that is when she decided to start a career in law enforcement to help other people. FYI, I have actually seen in the room and now I don't feel I ever need to. DR girlfriend has locked room in house, turns out to be nothing but bad memories. Stories number 2. Am I the asshole here for calling my girlfriend childish and telling her to leave after she intentionally destroyed a gift that I got for my little sister? I just wanted to write an update on what happened after I posted. When I kicked Megan out, I already knew that there was no way our relationship could continue. After reading the comments on the post, I knew that I needed to officially end the relationship and not leave things hanging. I only said to her I needed time to think because I wanted her to leave without a fuss. She had already caused enough trouble. I hadn't spoken to her since what happened because I was ignoring her texts. Some of them telling me that she missed me and wanted to come back home. I decided to text her to arrange a meeting. She told me to come over to her friend's place because she only stayed a few days at her parents' place. When I got to her friend's place, I told Megan that the relationship is not working out for me and it's best that we break up. I said I don't see myself getting over the fact that she intentionally destroyed something that meant a lot to my sister over her irrational jealousy. Not to mention that she never really opened up to my sister, which should have been enough for me to end the relationship then. My sister deserves to be around someone who is willing to form a relationship with her. I had the rest of her stuff and proceeded to give them to her. She started crying and pleading, then accusing me of choosing my sister over her. I clearly never really loved her. She knew that this would happen after my sister moved in. I just said to her, this is exactly why I'm breaking up with you. I also told her that she really needed to reimburse me the $300 for the Switch that she accidentally dropped because my little sister is heartbroken over it and has been sad about it ever since. She rolled her eyes and told me that she already said it was an accident and that it's not her problem anyway since I don't want to be with her anymore. I didn't feel like continuing to argue with her, so I told her to never contact me again and left. When I got home, I blocked her everywhere. I am relieved that she is out of our lives, but I'm very disappointed in myself that it took something so drastic for me to see that Megan was not a good person. Stories number 3. I ruined my sister's wedding, but she deserved it. What do you mean you've been sleeping with my boyfriend? I snapped. Was sleeping with him, my sister, Alice, corrected me. I broke it off with him months ago. Why are you telling me this now? Because I want to get married with a clear conscience, was her reply. Does that mean you told Brad? That was her fiancé's name. No, I haven't, she shook her head, and I'm not going to. Hearing her reply confirmed my suspicions that she was lying about her motivation for telling me. You're not trying to clear your conscience, I pointed an accusing finger at her, you just don't want me to be a part of the wedding. That's not it, she said unconvincingly. Whatever, I stormed out of her apartment, slamming the door behind me. The first thing I did after I left was confront my boyfriend. He tried to lie about the affair at first but changed his story once I told him that my sister had already confessed. He begged for forgiveness and tried to pin the blame on Alice, saying she was the one who initiated things, but I didn't care. It takes two to tango, was the last thing I said to him. The next week was a series of emotional highs and lows for me until I decided that I wasn't going to let my sister get away with what she'd done. After everything we'd been through over the years, she'd finally crossed a line and I was going to make sure she paid for it. Under the pretense of wanting to put things behind us, I reached out to Alice and invited her over to my apartment to make amends. When she got there, I told her that it was over between my boyfriend and me and that we should celebrate. She readily agreed and accepted the drug-laced drink I handed her. That was too easy, I said as I dragged her corpse into the bedroom where the body of my ex-boyfriend lay in a spreading pool of blood on the floor. Before I positioned her body on the bed, I swapped the clothes I was wearing with the clothes she was wearing. Since we were twins, nobody would be able to tell that it wasn't my body in the bed. Now that the scene was set, I went back to Alice's apartment to enact the rest of my plan. How was your sister? Brad asked when I walked through the door. I don't know, I replied, she never answered the door. That's weird, he replied, why did she invite you over if she wasn't going to be there? It is weird, I agreed, do you think I should call someone to check on her? I asked. Nah, he shook his head, you know how crazy she is. It's probably best to just forget about her. Yeah, I smiled, you're probably right. Stories number 4. My husband doesn't know I'm about to divorce him. This has been my plan for 6 years. This is by far the craziest thing I've done and I can't believe I suffered all these years staying with this man just so I can survive financially. The start of our marriage was wonderful. We had 2 babies. After the second pregnancy he cheated on me with a very close family member. He gave me a lazy apology and on top of that he complained about my body. He also told me I was built like a refrigerator. Mind you, I was 4 months postpartum at the time. I secretly saw a family lawyer. To sum it up for you, I would be screwed leaving him. We only had $25,000 and that being split up is basically nothing for me. No Marshall properties. No car. I didn't have a job. Literally nothing. I was a som. I applied for hundreds of jobs during the time and couldn't find employment anywhere, so leaving was a bad decision for me financially speaking, especially with 2 small babies. Also, alimony and child support weren't going to be enough for me to live off of or survive with 2 babies with, so I let him believe that I forgave him and I continued being his wife. The very first time he cheated on me it was with my cousin. Then he cheated again. He had a one-night stand with a random girl he met on a night out. I got so mad, I cheated back on him out of anger. OFC, he never found out I cheated. At least I'm smart about it. Unlike him, during the time in our marriage, I worked on getting my independence back. My husband paid for my trade school. It was a very expensive program, but he paid for everything. We moved and we bought a house with his income. He grew his money too during all this time. So he made far more money now than he did when I originally wanted to leave him. I started working recently. I have a career now. I'm so happy about that I haven't filed for divorce yet. He has no idea of my plans. I'm excited. I finally get to leave him after almost 7 years. Now I can walk away with at least $200,000 and we have Marshall assets now like the house and the car he also paid off for me. Now I have my education and my own career. I've been working on my weight loss. I lost 66 pounds. He paid for my tirazepide. I had a breast reduction and a breast lift. I look amazing. I don't doubt I'll probably get remarried eventually. Everything in my life is finally set and going the right way. ETA, laughing at the people mad at me for cheating back on him. What did you expect to happen? I stay loyal to my husband while he fucks other girls. LOL, you guys think I'm going to just go without sex for almost a decade. Hilarious. A lot of people here wanted an update the last time I posted. I wanted to update you guys and tell you that I did serve him. You know what's the funny part? He was honestly shocked that this happened as if he didn't do anything wrong. He told his parents on me because I'm really close with his parents and he thought they could persuade me to change my mind. His parents are sweet, however they turned on me quickly and told me off for leaving their son. They let me know what he did was unacceptable, but what I'm doing is even worse by leaving him and a family behind. My husband cursed me off after the divorce news. He also called me a gold digger and went on a rant about how women only want money and blah blah blah. He also called me a slut because I went out with my girls and boys who are my close friends and we went to the bar and celebrated my divorce, before I told my husband about this. Anyways, we are in the middle of a divorce now. It's a process. We both still live in the marital home until further notice as noticed by the attorney. We will both have the 50-50 custody, most likely a rotating schedule. One of my kids is taking the divorce really hard even though he knows what happened and he's begging us to stay together and how he doesn't want us to get a divorce. Honestly, I did feel pretty bad after my son begged me not to divide up our family and to stay with their dad. But I know at the end of the day I need to be selfish and put my needs above everyone else's for once in my life. My son does hate me though. He won't talk to me and spends most of his time with daddy. My other child is younger and doesn't fully understand what's going on and is just kind of brushing it off. My son just keeps saying he doesn't want divorced parents and he wants us to stay together and he doesn't want step-parents. My son is really taking it hard. He is also saying that he wants to spend most of his time with his father if I go through with the divorce, and I just told him that's not how it's going to work. And we will both spend time with him and he keeps saying it's not fair and he doesn't want to stay with me. Stories number 5. The most disgraceful case of entitled parenting I've ever heard of. Not a personal experience, but still bad enough to ponder, on what planet is this okay? My mother worked in a library years ago. One day, a woman came in with baby twins, both were already screaming at the top of their lungs. Now, the woman didn't wait a minute to settle and then attempt to soothe her twins. Not 2, or even 5. Nope. This went on for 20 minutes. I swear you would have to be completely sensory deprived to be able to ignore 2 tornado sirens very close to you. After 20 minutes, my mom goes over to the mom and politely asks her to please be quiet, which is about the kindest you could be. You would expect the mother of the twins to apologize and GTFO. Heck, I would be embarrassed after 30 seconds. Instead, entitled mother becomes the third crier and complains to the boss for being mean and disrespecting her status. The EM was also a lawyer apparently, as if that's an excuse, and my mother gets in trouble for doing her job. Libraries are supposed to be quiet, and I bet you any other sane person would be a lot less nice if they were in that situation. Please keep your crotch lines at home if you know they will be detrimental to other people. I can guarantee that if anyone else were to expose others to prolonged noise like that, then they would be kicked out and banned from the premises. I simply can't understand how 20 minutes, longer if nobody intervened, of death howling in a library is okay, nor how this woman who can't even understand simple rules could become a lawyer. That be my rant. Have a nice day and I hope this never happens to you. Stories number 6. I've been informed by a solicitor that my husband is having an affair. Yesterday morning I was contacted by a solicitor. I was confused because I don't have any need for one for anything. She told me that her client is seeking a divorce from his wife due to the wife having an affair. Their investigator found the affair is with my husband and the client asked the solicitor to inform me since my husband is married. She provided me with proof of the affair. My brother-in-law is to be married on Saturday. My husband is the best man and is already there to assist with everything. Me and my 5-month-old daughter were supposed to leave on Friday morning to join them. My husband is unaware that I know. I am shocked, but the proof is right in front of my eyes. I haven't told anyone, but I have asked me sister to come over after work. I'm going to ask if my daughter and me can stay with her. I don't think I can face him at the wedding. I don't want to hear excuses. My sister's husband is a solicitor, and while he does not do divorces, I'll ask if he can recommend someone. I have to talk to my sister, but I'm mostly just getting my thoughts out on here because I feel entirely scattered. Update: 1 month later I told my husband I had been exposed to COVID and could not attend the wedding. My sister helped pack and she is letting me and my daughter stay with her until I find a flat. Someone I work with has a family member who has one up that I can afford that's available in January. When my husband returned home on the Monday, there was a note telling him I knew about the affair. The husband of the other woman was going to be filing for divorce later that week and I would not be far behind. My sister's husband is a solicitor and he recommended a divorce solicitor to me. My husband and I both have jobs. We don't own a home. At the advice of my solicitor, I opened a new bank account for myself, but I did not touch any of our joint accounts. I'm not stopping my husband from seeing our daughter, and my solicitor said the law will favor sharing of custody. Unless it is about our daughter, I told my husband to have his solicitor talk to mine. I won't discuss anything else with him. Once we have been separated for 2 years we can get a divorce. My solicitor said there is no way to shorten the time requirement. Thank you everyone who showed me kindness. Update: 2 years later. Background: my first 2 posts may be found in my post history. However, in summary, my husband had an affair. The other woman was also married. Her husband's solicitor informed me about the affair. I found out right before my husband's brother was to get married. I told everyone I was ill and stayed home. I moved in with my sister while my husband was away at the wedding. Our daughter was 5 months old when I found out about the affair. The update is that I am now divorced. I live in Ireland. It is a requirement that couples live apart for 2 years before they can be divorced. There are no exceptions under the law to this. It used to be 4 years, and up until 1998 divorce was not legal in Ireland at all. My daughter and I lived with my sister for almost 3 months before I moved us into our own flat. My husband and I did not own any property and I legally had no authority to ask him to leave the flat we had while we were married. So I left instead. On the advice of my solicitor, I opened my own bank account and left our jointly owned accounts alone to be settled in the divorce. While we were living apart, my husband and I used an app to communicate about our daughter, and everything else was through our solicitors. I haven't talked to him about the affair, I haven't talked to his family or friends, and I don't have social media. My husband carried on seeing the other woman for several months after I moved out, so I'm sure everyone knows he had an affair, but that isn't my problem now. The only thing I talk with him about is our daughter and anything relating to her. We have joint custody and I will pay him maintenance. Fault is not considered in a divorce and an affair doesn't affect custody. I do not have to pay maintenance to my husband for himself since he is already living with another woman, not the one he had an affair with, and plans to marry her right away now that we are divorced. If he had been living on his own and not about to get married, I would have had to pay him maintenance. I have never met the woman he had an affair with, or her husband or their children. My focus is on my daughter and I am civil with her father for her sake. But I don't care about looking on social media or talking to him about the affair. I have never talked to him about it and never will. I only care about my daughter. Apologies if my update isn't exciting. I am divorced, there is no drama, and I know that's usually not exciting, but some people have been messaging asking for an update and I wanted to say thank you to all the lovely people who offered me support during a terrible time. Stories number 7. Am I the asshole for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding after she replaced me as MOH because I'm too fat, I'm pregnant, and asking her to pay me back for everything? Not the a-hole. POO mode. I, 27F, have been best friends with Claire, 28F, since high school. When she asked me to be her maid of honor, I was thrilled and went all out to make her wedding special. I paid for the bridal shower, bachelorette party, a weekend trip, decorations, and other expenses, spending several $1,000s. While it was a lot of money for my husband and me, I wanted to make her big day perfect because she's like family to me. 2 months ago, I shared that I'm 4 months pregnant. Claire congratulated me but started acting distant afterward. She excluded me from conversations about the wedding and made passive comments about how hard it is to coordinate when people are distracted. I brushed it off, thinking it was wedding stress. A few days ago, she sat me down and told me she didn't want me in the wedding anymore. Her reason? I'm getting too fat, and she doesn't want me in the pictures. She said she has a specific vision for her wedding, and I no longer fit it. I was devastated. I asked if this was about my pregnancy, but she insisted it wasn't personal. She said she was replacing me as MOH with another friend who fit her aesthetic. I told her if I wasn't in the wedding, I wouldn't attend at all. I also handed her the receipts for everything I'd paid for and told her she or her fiancé needed to reimburse me since I'd only spent that money as her MOH. Claire flipped out, calling me selfish and accusing me of trying to ruin her wedding. She said it was tacky to ask for the money back and that expenses like these were my responsibility as MOH. I reminded her that she removed me from that role, so those expenses were no longer mine. Since then, Claire, her fiancé, and even her family have been spamming me with calls and texts. They're accusing me of being petty and overreacting because of pregnancy hormones. They're also saying I should have just let it go and written off the money because weddings are stressful, and Claire didn't mean to hurt me. My husband has been incredibly supportive and says I did the right thing. He's furious at how Claire treated me and agrees that I shouldn't be out thousands of dollars for a wedding I'm not part of. I feel heartbroken and humiliated by someone I thought was my best friend. Still, the constant backlash has made me second-guess myself. Am I the asshole for standing up for myself and asking for reimbursement? Should I have just quietly stepped aside? Stories number 8. Am I the asshole for refusing to babysit my sister's kids after she publicly called me irresponsible in front of our whole family? I, 26F, am the younger sister to Emma, 34F, who has 3 kids, 7, 4, and 2. Emma has been a single mom for the past few years, and while I respect her hard work, I feel like I've been roped into this unofficial secondary parent role without my consent. Even though I love it at times, it is stressful. Over the past year, she's come to rely on me as her primary babysitter. She'll often ask me to watch the kids at the last minute because she needs a break or wants to run errands without the stress. I've cancelled my plans more times than I can count to help her out, and I did it because I wanted to, because she is my sister. But last weekend I finally had something I was looking forward to, a close friend's birthday dinner. I'd been helping her plan it for weeks, and we were supposed to have this amazing girls' night at a fancy restaurant, followed by karaoke, something I never get to do with how much I'm helping my sister. On the day of the party, Emma texted me in the afternoon, asking if I could watch the kids for a few hours so she could recharge. I told her I couldn't because of my plans, and I expected her to respect that, which she seemingly did. I assumed she found someone else or worked it out in the end. Then, fast forward to the next evening at a family dinner. Out of nowhere, Emma goes off on me in front of everyone, saying I'm irresponsible, self-centered, and that I have no idea what it's like to be a real adult since I don't have kids of my own. She even went on about how she sacrifices everything for her kids while I party around like a teenager. I was mortified and honestly heartbroken. This was in front of our parents, aunts, uncles, everyone. After dinner, I told her that I was done babysitting until she could apologize and start treating me with respect. She's been furious, saying I'm abandoning her and that family should be there no matter what. It made me feel really bad and I felt as if I did abandon her as sister with this demand. My mom, of course, took her side, saying I should let it go because Emma is stressed and just needs my support as she is a single mom and yaddy. I get that being a single mom is tough and I am her sister and she helped me out a lot too, but on the other side I feel like I'm being guilt-tripped and treated like her backup parent and not even a babysitter that can have other plans. Am I the asshole for saying enough is enough and setting this boundary? Edit. Okay, so lots of people in the comments encourage me to set up firm boundaries. Lots of great advice here, Imo. Everyone's so positive and reminding me that boundaries are key. Now I see that I really do need to hold firm on them. Setting limits is something I've struggled with, especially when it's family. No apology from her yet, but I'll stay strong. Thanks so much for the support. Stories number 9. Am I overreacting? My husband wants rough sex. What is rough sex and when is it too much? My husband has a bodybuilder's physique and I am quite petite. We got married almost 3 years ago and I was pregnant back-to-back with our 2 babies. I had one partner before him. He had a normal range of partners. He is 15 years older than me but looks young for his age, but unfortunately, I also look younger than my age, so either way the age difference is apparent. My husband, let's call him S, is also very dominating and has an extremely powerful personality. He is the boss at his work, in the house, in his family, etc. Everyone respects and looks up to him. He started having rough sex as soon as we get married, but it wasn't extremely rough and he stopped when I got pregnant. We didn't have any discussions on it start or stop. Our sex life is amazing. I love him and am very attracted to him, and I would say the same for him. But recently he has started becoming rougher and rougher in sex. It's been going on for 3 months now and it catches me off surprise because it's not every time we have sex. Most of the time it's lovely romantic sex and it's not from the beginning. So some days in between normal sex it starts getting rougher and rougher to the point where I come out feeling physically and mentally hurt. And every time the violence is escalating. He keeps slapping my face, spitting on me, really painfully slapping my butt, spitting on me, pulling New York hair, choking me, biting me hard enough to draw blood, putting his D in my asshole, but of course it's always by mistake. All of these things are extremely painful. He has this new position during sex where he puts one foot on my face. He keeps verbally abusing me during sex. Yesterday he hit my vagina with the metal top of the belt. I started crying and he pretended it was by mistake, and while I was crying, he started having sex again. When I tried to break free of him, he actually held me down and kept on having sex till I stopped fighting as I was getting hurt more. I cried to him yesterday. AMD told him how I was feeling, and he told me I was making a really big deal about normal stuff that all couples do. He told me all his friends do it and their wives love it. He said I was being overly sensitive because I have no problems in my life and that he goes out of his way and provides me with all comforts, which he does, and now I want to F up our love life by being boring and missionary. He also stated that I was wet the whole time, and if it was actually so painful I wouldn't have been wet. He further stated that next time we will just do missionary, but don't blame him if he starts having affairs. Now I am feeling guilty. I read online that a lot of women like rough sex, and if it's his fantasy then I as his wife should work on it. I know he work on my fantasies. But now every time I think about sex I actually get scared. Am I overreacting? I am writing from a friend's throwaway account. Stories number 10. Am I the asshole for harboring resentment against my holier-than-thou grandmother after finding out a huge family secret? Am I the asshole? I 25. Female found out from my mother, 45 years, a few years ago that she had discovered her father, the grandfather I know, was not her biological father. What's crazy is she found out accidentally. So a little backstory: my mom has always taken health and wellness very seriously, so when she and I started to have some similar health issues she started looking into our history through Ancestry.com to see if she could find anything of note. She took a DNA test and was shocked to find that my grandfather, her alleged dad, was nowhere on her biological family tree. For some backstory: my mom and I didn't always get along. I think it's just because she had me young, and when I was a teenager, we bumped heads a lot, but we get along fine now. When I was 17 I moved to my grandmother's just for a little space from my parents, and because it was closer to my college, and it just ended up working out. It was easy because my mom was single until she met my stepdad, so I had spent a lot of time with my grandparents anyways. Everything was fine at first because I was still an obedient little girl, especially when it came to my grandmother. I adored her. There's not much I wouldn't do for her approval, from joining her church's worship team, to almost marrying someone borderline abusive just because she liked them, at 23. I know this sounds bad, but if you know what it's like to grow up religious, it's so easy to get roped into being a people pleaser. My grandmother would preach constantly that I had to stay on the right path or I would go to hell in a handbasket. She even did things like show me extremist videos about the end times, etc. Wild things started to change when I developed a brain of my own. I realized a bunch of stuff I did and wore wasn't even me. I was just doing for validation from people who didn't even care about me, they just cared about what I could do. I started going out more, making friends, and I got my first tattoo. My grandmother started acting really strange around this time. She constantly forbids me from having sleepovers with my best friend because I had to be careful about sleeping in the same bed as a girl. She was livid when I got my septum pierced, saying that it was ugly and made me uglier, and why couldn't I just be good? She just kept acting off as months passed and started being really snappy and rude. So back to the main story: a few days later my mom sat me down and told me everything. I asked her if she really got the DNA test because of medical history. She said it was partly that and partly that she had jokingly said she was going to take a DNA test in front of my grandmother, and she basically snapped, saying that my mom didn't need to take one and that she was just trying to start stuff. Suspicious lol. So my mom took it and boom, there it is. I asked my mom if she had confronted her. She said she told her that she had 2 weeks to come clean or she would go to grandpa herself. My grandma denied everything, saying she never knew that my grandpa wasn't my mom's dad. But my mom said the look on her face when she said wasn't a look of shock. It was a look of OSH*T, I'm caught. So she doesn't believe she didn't know. I was floored. I couldn't believe the woman who spoke in tongues and shamed me for ripped jeans was harboring a secret baby daddy, but she was worried about my tattoos and piercings. That's not even what really got me though. My grandmother pushes toxic purity culture so heavily. She basically believes that a woman is less valuable if she isn't a virgin when she's married and is a dedicated housewife. She picks this man's underwear up off the floor. So the fact that she of all the people in the world had been punishing me because I wasn't doing what she thought was right when she can't even do what she thinks is right is insane. I started to feel rage at this point. I couldn't bear to really look at my grandmother, and we started getting in more fights. It would honestly be different if she was the kind of Christian who admitted she wasn't perfect, but she's quite the opposite. Which drives a lot of people away, including friends I would invite over. Nobody wants to come over and hear a lecture about how they're living their whole life wrong. You're kidding. I'm honestly starting to feel disgust, and it hasn't gone away. I'm not rude to her or anything, I just kind of avoid her because what to say anyways, am I the asshole? Update: my mom found relatives. Hello everyone. I certainly wasn't expecting this many comments. I haven't gotten to read all of them as I am a full-time med student with 2 jobs. But let me clarify some things. It was not SA. If it had been I'm not heartless, I would feel completely different about the situation because it's relatable to me. I understand religious culture and culture in the South with older generations. A lot of time women weren't believed about SA. My grandmother ended up telling my grandpa about everything before my mom could and keeps saying she doesn't know and doesn't remember anything from that time, but I call BS. My grandmother can tell me what she ate on her 12 birthdays at dinner. The woman forgets nothing, so I think she just doesn't want to talk about it, which is kind of understandable. You keep a secret that long, it's gotta be painful to have it come out. I took this into consideration and started trying to be nicer to her, but she just pushed me away more and started taking her anger out on me. I couldn't do anything right. She even called me a white one time for going on a date that lasted past 10 p.m. so I just started staying in my room, going to school and work and sleeping, and that's my life, RN. There were also some comments saying that my grandmother was trying to protect me because she knows what men can be like and what the world can be like. I thought about this and considered it too, and I understand that maybe her behavior is protective, but I want to give a little advice to all you older folks out there with kids and grandkids. My generation respects people owning up to their mistakes. If she would have came from a place of, hey, I've made these mistakes and I know what it's like, so let me help you avoid doing whatever I did, versus you'll never be as perfect or godly as me, but you could at least try, I'd be a lot more open to listening. But the holier than thou behavior is what has a lot of PPL my age heading out of church doors, not in. But anyways, my mother is a certified sleuth. It took her about 48 HRS to track down her cousin and 2 sisters. The sister lived pretty far, but her cousin lives 45 minutes from her. They set up a lunch the same day and met. Here are the details. Let's just call her and my mother's biological dad, sadly deceased, was a family friend of my grandma's family. They were the same age and started an affair after my grandma had my aunt, her second child. Ann's mother knew about the affair between my grandma and her brother and also knew my grandfather's family. Everyone was acquainted before the affair. Apparently, my grandparents had been fighting at the time, according to my grandfather, and he was surprised but happy when my mother came along. You have to understand, from what my mom and grandfather tell me, my grandma pushed for them to be as close as possible. My mom is the child my grandpa is closest to, his favorite. Apparently, my grandmother pushed for them to hang out together, go on day trips, just the 2 of them, almost like she was trying to create a failsafe. And my siblings, I were constantly with my grandparents when I was young, more than any of the other grandchildren. My grandfather is livid. He's not a talkative man, but he talks to me and my mom. This is how the conversation went. Me, how are you feeling about everything, Grandpa? You understand you're still my granddaughter and I love you. Nothing will change that. But I gave up my life for your grandma. She was disgusted by the music I listened to, the friends I had, and even my family. I distanced myself from everyone. I threw away all my records. I started going to a church I didn't even want to go to, all for her. I always thought she was a good girl. Even when my family would say things about her, I always chose her. It just hurts to know she didn't choose me. Me, hugs Grandpa. He told me that also one day his sister came up to him and said that girl isn't who you think she is, but wouldn't give any other details. But he mostly ignored it. She was always saying how his family was no good and just using him. Here's the kicker though, my mom sat me down and said, I need to show you something. She pulled out a picture of my uncle, her older brother, that was really faded and kind of old-timey, and said, who is this? I looked at her confused. Duh, it's Uncle G. She looked at me dead in the eyes and said, no, this is a picture of my father. What more updates to come? I'll let you guys know more when I do, but the plot thickens, I guess. Stories number 11. How do I leave my parents' house without ending up homeless? Find path, job choice, clarity. I'm 28, still live with parents. Suffer from severe depression, bad anxiety. Useless journalism degree. Did multiple internships. Got awards years ago. Mean nothing now. Work dead-end job for the past 5 years. My current job is a literal do nothing and get paid job, but it provides me no long-term skills, and I've wasted all my youth on being depressed and working this dead-end job. I have nearly no life experience and I am not good at anything at all. I'm from a small rural area where there are literally no jobs outside minimum wage. Can't join the military due to my mental health and multiple knee injuries. The only hope I had was teaching English overseas, but COVID happened. Now I am 28 and feel like I am too old to waste another year or 2 being in Europe or Asia. The only thing I do in my spare time is make YouTube videos, not a career. I can barely break 100 views. Play video games, I'm bad at all of them. Fuck around in Blender, after 4 years I'm still trash and can't do the basics. Occasionally look at Unreal Engine 5 before realizing that it's a waste of time. Not sure what to do. I messed up my life before age 21 by getting this useless degree. The only job offers I can get are in major cities like NYC that offer me $37K a year. I'd just end up homeless. This is why my suicidal ideations keep me up at night. Stories number 12. Because you're a woman this morning, a boomer decided to treat me like I shouldn't have the same rights as him. On my way home from dropping kids at school, an 81-year-old man in my neighborhood pulled out from a side street and blocked my path. I think this move was simply that he is a bad driver. Then it got weird. He decided to stop and wait for me to move, even though there was nowhere for me to go and he had parked cars on his side of the street. The law is clear on this one and he was violating it twice. Anyway, he gets out of his car and starts to yell at me that I need to move. Very, get off my lawn, behavior. I calmly asked him why he was yelling at me. His response: because you're a woman. Cool bro. So, I waited. About 30 minutes later the police come. When I explained to the female officer what was happening, she rolled her eyes. He proceeded to yell at her and claim he was once arrested for something completely different. She made him move. I want so badly to release his information, but I am going to be the bigger person. I think this was a nice warm-up to our immediate future in the US. Can't wait. Stories number 13. My parents want me to give my inheritance away. Yes, I have included the state or country in the post. Hello, I am in desperate need of advice. I live in another state but this is being handled in Texas. Me and my family have always had a very rocky relationship. My grandmother was one of the few family members I had a close personal relationship with. I grew up with parents who were neglectful at best and emotionally abusive at their worst. My grandmother was my constant support system and my cheerleader in everything that I did. When I was 16, her and my grandfather got divorced and things turned hostile quickly. My parents decided to side with my grandfather during the divorce due to several personal factors that were not my grandmother's fault and ended up forcing me to cut contact with her for several years. When I moved away for college, I reached back out to update her about my life and checked in regularly. My parents found out a year down the line and our relationship took a steep downturn. My mom would not respond to any calls or texts for 3 months. My dad would only respond if I had an emergency. Despite this, I continued to keep in contact with my grandma and did the best I could to call off of friends' phones to keep my parents out of my privacy as much as possible. This summer my mom suddenly decided to fly to my home state and she lied to me about why she was going. Several days later I receive a call from her letting me know that my grandmother has terminal cancer and not very much time to live. Over the course of the next 3 months, I begged my parents to fly me home and let me see her. Finally, towards the last few days I got to go in and hug her and tell her I loved her. When she passed, my mom handled all of her estate and death arrangements. It has been a few months since she has passed and I got a phone call from my dad several days ago letting me know that I was the beneficiary to her IRA account. I am 20 years old and currently supported by my parents while I attend college. For some reference, my grandmother and grandfather were divorced years prior and his name is not listed on the account. However, my parents are claiming that he was awarded the money in their divorce and expect me to fully withdraw the money in cash and transfer it to him. After finding out that I had been left something, I spent days researching and trying to figure out how to get the money transferred. I am still actively working on this, however it is proving to be very difficult. I spoke with my mom on the phone today and it seemed as though she knew I wasn't in complete agreement with the plan despite me not saying anything against it yet. She gave me an ultimatum of giving away the money or losing them and their support. I have been told a wide variety of numbers as to what is in the account, but I will not be able to know the exact amount until I am able to receive some of the necessary documents. I'm fearful as I'm currently in school and am not in a place to fully financially support myself, but I want to make my grandmother happy and fulfill her wish. I'm also afraid that wish might not have been fully thought through and I'm worried about hurting my grandfather. If you were in this situation or you have been in a situation like this, what would you do? Stories number 14. Pretty sure my grandma's identity was stolen by my mom. There's a $20,000 loan in her name. Mom screamed at me for warning grandma about it. My grandma is 81 years old and she hasn't handled her own finances for at least 3 years now. It's my mom who pays the bills out of my grandma's account, but she doesn't have any sort of power of attorney or anything over her. Grandma and I were talking last week and she said a guy came to her house a couple of days prior and gave her court paperwork. My mom told her it was a scam and to ignore it. On a hunch, I checked the county website and it really does look like she's being sued for a little over $20,000. I told her about it and she called my mom, who still told her it was a scam and she would take care of it. I separately told my mom it looks like it's legitimate and she said it has to be some sort of mistake. I ended up going over to grandma's house and looking at the actual documents. It was all done online and the money was sent to my grandma's bank. We ended up going to the bank together and they gave us printouts of the account activity. Plain as day you see the $20,000 be transferred in and 2 days later there's a check on the account, made out to my mom, for $20,000. My grandma has the $20,000 to pay them back. I got a call from my mom yesterday screaming at me about getting into my grandma's business and that she will deal with the lawsuit. I feel like she took the $20,000 and did who knows what with it. It looks like a payment was never made on the loan. I'm not sure if I can go to the police or her behalf or what. Stories number 15. I, 24F, am planning to ghost my boyfriend, 23M, of 2 years. Is there a better way to break up? Update. It's been a few weeks since my initial post, but for those of you who didn't get the chance or just don't care enough to go read my desperate ramble, here's a summary. My boyfriend of almost 3 years has a history of just being extremely angry and blowing minor disagreements out of proportion. He's made jokes about ending mine and my pets' lives and mistreating them in such a severe way. I didn't know how to leave him, I was scared and part of me wanted to hold out until he became the sweet man I fell in love with again. After finding out he had been lying to me about being in contact meeting up with his ex, I realized that he is never going to change and started to plan my escape. This update is not very interesting but a lot of people wanted to know. At the end of my last post, I had settled on leaving with my pets and was just waiting on move-out day. Move-out day came quicker than expected. Nothing escalated to dangerous degree but his behavior changed a lot. Suddenly he was being so incredibly sweet and was talking a lot about commitment. During our last conversation, he was ready to go down to the courthouse and get married right that second. I'm not sure if this is what love bombing is or if it was just him being desperate because he sensed I was pulling away. After that conversation, I knew if I stayed nothing good would come out of it. So, I called my family to come help me move out after he left for work. I was able to get out safely with my cat and puppy. I wound up sending a message kind of explaining why I left and asking him to never contact me again before blocking him on everything. So far, he's only tried to call me from a different number once. If he continues to reach out, I plan to talk to local law enforcement to see if a restraining order is possible. I'm not a fan of how everything ended but I am glad to be out of that situation and somewhere safe where I can learn who I am outside of him. Stories number 16. My 81-year-old grandmother got blackout drunk at my wedding. I wrote something about this last night when I was angrier, but I'm removing some of the details because, honestly, they don't matter. The long and short of it is that my grandmother is a profoundly narcissistic person and had been signaling since our engagement that she didn't really want to attend the wedding. She loves my fiancé. She says she loves me. But for whatever reason, she didn't want to watch her first grandchild get married. My mom and I told her that she didn't have to attend, but if she did, she needed to behave herself, that the consequences of acting like an ass would be a schism in our relationship. And, well, she didn't. She drank herself through the wedding, insulted some of our guests, and ultimately needed to be removed. My husband and I were shielded from most of it during the wedding, thanks to my family. But she ultimately pulled my family away from enjoying a wedding they largely paid for, and that's what I'm annoyed by. To be clear, it was still a beautiful, love-filled day, and my husband and I, 3 days later, keep getting hit by an overwhelming feeling of appreciation for our friends and family who were so excited to celebrate with us. But her behavior is still a tiny dark cloud over an otherwise perfect day. So my advice is that if someone is signaling that they don't want to be there, if someone is telling you that they will have to self-anesthetize to get through a happy day, believe them. Narcissists don't suddenly do an about-face for other people's milestones. And as much as it might hurt to make that call preemptively, it hurts 100x more to see how little they care about you play out in real time. Stories number 17. I own an exotic car rental company and I hate how fake all of my clients are throwaway for obvious reasons so I don't get doxxed. But I own an exotic rental car company in one of the largest markets for it in the USA. Along with cars, I rent our boats, houses and even watches. On average I profit about $40,000 to $50,000 a month. I love what I do because it lets me own very nice things without having to pay for them out of my own pocket. But I've begun to despise my clientele. The rapper in the G-Wagon you see on Instagram is renting it from me for $899 a day. Then they film their music videos on my boat for $3,000 a day and then pretend to live in my houses that I rent to them for $1,000 a night. The iced-out Patek he's wearing is another $1,500 a day to rent. The finance guru in the 911 you see on TikTok with the full gold Rolex has rented both from me on a weekly basis for $2,500. Sure, I get it. Money attracts money and renting these things to show off help further their businesses, but it also makes me despise them. When I originally started, I wanted to cater to car enthusiasts. I wanted to rent to the dude who just turned 50 and wanted to rent a Lamborghini to celebrate, or the guy who wanted a classy spec 911 for his wedding. Unfortunately, that's not where the money is. It's way too easy to make a killing off renting to the people who are trying to flex, which is why I expanded into renting yachts, houses and watches. A couple months ago we had a client rent our Ferrari 488 and post on Instagram in the car with $1,000 in singles. He left an ATM receipt in the car from that transaction and it showed he had $40 available balance after withdrawing that $1,000, and honestly, I just felt bad for the guy. No amount of flexing on Instagram is going to fill whatever void you're trying to fill. Just a reminder that everything you see online is extremely fake, and unfortunately that's now expanded into the real world too. Stories number 18. Boyfriend denied 1 day off for his best friend's wedding, over a year in advance. Not specifically money related but hoping for some advice. My boyfriend is a heating engineer for a well-known boiler manufacturer. It's no surprise that winter is their busiest time of year and the company are quite strict on them taking holiday during that time. We found out this weekend that his best friend is getting married on the December 19th, 2025, and he has been asked to be a groomsman. Yesterday, he sent his manager a request for the day off, over a year in advance, and was told it would be unlikely as he already has 1 day off this Christmas for him to attend another of his best friend's weddings. He's even working an extra couple of days this December, to make up for the fact he's having 1 day off. I've told him he needs to escalate it further, there's no way he can miss it, and definitely not over a job that he consistently goes above and beyond for. His manager knows the day off is for a wedding, but told him not to put it in his holiday request to HR, not sure why. Just wondering if anyone can help with where to go from here. Wish he'd just not said anything and called in sick, but he's too honest and also scared he'd get caught. But he's devastated that he might not be able to go, so any advice would really be appreciated. Stories number 19. I got super loud and silly to comfort my baby and I'm sure my neighbors had a good laugh. So baby is 5 months old. He had a rough start, so I swore I'd give him whatever he wants. This morning, he was overtired. Probably because he's decided he's nocturnal now and his sleeping pattern has gone completely wonky and wanted to play rather than sleep. So I'm rocking him, rod for my own back, literally, and singing his usual lullaby. My family's version of Brahms' lullaby that's been passed down for a few generations now. However, today he's having none of it. He's screaming, he's pushing off me. He's totally miserable. He's tired but he's fighting it. I figure I need to distract him long enough from his tantrum to get him to realize he's safe, loved and is going to get the sleep that he so desperately needs. So to begin with I started clicking with my mouth really loudly. It works. He's calming down. So now I'm rocking and clicking all sorts of weird tunes. He's getting bored. Quick change it to raspberries, but I can't look at him for fear of spitting on him, so I'm doing this weird half-turned rocking and constant raspberry noises. Have to change, can't keep up this level of exhalation. Quick. Improvised hillbilly sounding doodah song. He's dozing. Oh no, need to change again. Hope it works soon, my back can't take anymore. Oh no, he's getting fussy again. Try ooee, that's fun right? Nope, too fun, he's laughing. Da-do-dee-dee. Finally, he's asleep. Tiptoe to the sofa to sit with him on me because there's no way I'm risking waking him up by putting him in the cot. The things we do when our children need us. This was all with the window open and my neighbors outside having a conversation before going to work and school. Embarrassing, but LD do it all over again to make sure he finally slept. Stories number 20. Exempt employee sick with COVID and emailed my boss that I can't come in. I asked if I can work from home, but he said no and I should take the day off. The next day I asked again, just so I won't use up my sick days. He finally said yes and that I should only work half day and use 4 hours is sick leave. Not too happy, but I do what I was told and then got an email from HR. Exempt employees get full day of pay as long as they work at least 50% of the day. Since then I've been leaving work early when I finish my work for the day. It's been pretty much 5 to 6 hours days for me. Technically, my boss is from another department and we seldom have to cross paths. Stories number 21. My F32 friend, F32, has been lying about being a nurse for 10 years using a throwaway so I don't dox myself. I, F32, have a friend from high school, Amy, F32. We are 14 years out of high school and 10 years out of college. We went to a small private high school that was pretty intense, the kind of place where people always ask where are you going to college instead of if. After graduation I went to a big state school a few hours away from our hometown. Amy decided she wanted to study nursing, so she decided to go to the small university in our hometown since it has a great program and she could save money living at home. We stayed friends through college. We'd get dinner when I was home on weekends and she drove up to visit my school once or twice a year. After graduating I moved across the country for graduate school. She stayed in our hometown and told me she'd been accepted to a competitive residency program for new nursing grads at a local hospital. My mom is a nurse in the same hospital system Amy started at and told me it was a big deal for Amy to get in because the program has less than a 10% acceptance rate. I was really proud. We drifted apart a little bit when I moved, but she still stood up in my wedding and we tried to catch up every time I came home. I ended up settling down near my grad school and have a career I love, think accountant, lawyer, doctor, etc. I tried to check on Amy throughout the pandemic because I knew she was in the ICU and I saw how hard it was for my mom in a non-critical care department. Amy would tell me horror stories about how traumatic it was, and how it was so hard not to be able to talk about work because a bad day for most people might mean sending follow-up emails, but for her it probably meant someone died. I have other friends who worked ICU and that sounded pretty consistent with what they said. Last summer she told me she was starting to think about leaving nursing and going to school for something less intense like business. Fast forward to about a month ago. I was following a news story from the state we grew up in, think true crime, and people in the comments started arguing about whether or not someone involved was a nurse. One person posted the link to the state nursing licensure database. I clicked it and was trying to see how much information it would provide about someone, so I put in Amy's name, and nothing came up. I would have let it go except I remembered that about 5 years ago my mom had looked for Amy in their system database and didn't see her, so asked me if Amy had switched jobs. Amy said she hadn't, so I assumed my boomer mother just couldn't use an Outlook address book. Sorry mom. I tried to find a logical explanation. Did she get married and not tell me? No, maiden names come up. Did she lose her license? No, it seemed like you could see suspended or inactive licenses. Did she have a different legal name? No, I've traveled with her and seen her airline ticket and ID. I sent a text to ask her to remind me what hospital she worked at. She responded and told me she had switched to another hospital in our hometown. I found a friend of a friend whose mom was a nurse at the hospital Amy said she was working at, and sure enough, they didn't know her and couldn't find her in their system. So I started digging. Eventually I was able to find the grad list from Amy's college for our year. She wasn't on it, or any of the 3 years before or after. And I realized I had never seen a picture of her at her graduation. I'm pretty sure she at least enrolled at one point because I went to a volleyball game with her our freshman year of college and met friends from her program. I dug more and found out from court records that she's had financial troubles. She's been sued by debt collection agencies multiple times in the past few years. And eventually I was able to figure out what she actually does. She's the office manager for a dental practice. A totally normal and not worth hiding job. Her bio on the practice's website said she's been working there for 8 years. At this point in my life Amy is the only person from our high school class that I keep in contact with, but she's still close with a few people who ended up back in our hometown, and I follow those people on Instagram. I checked their pages and at least as of 2020 they thought she was a nurse because one captioned a photo, "Happy birthday to our favorite nurse. Thanks for taking all of our frantic medical questions." Amy had removed the tag so it didn't show up on her pages. I found something Amy's mom posted about a year after we would have graduated college that tagged Amy and had an RN pin in it, so it seems like at one point her parents thought she was a nurse too. She's no longer friends with her parents on social media, so maybe they had a falling out. My head was spinning because no way Amy would lie to me, but then I started thinking back on the last 10 years and, I'm an idiot. Have you heard the dead dog in a duffel bag story? Google it if not, it's a famous urban legend. Our freshman year of college she told me that happened to her and I thought maybe she had embellished but didn't realize it was an urban legend. Last summer I met her new boyfriend and she said, "Oh yeah, he really wants me to quit nursing and go to business school, so don't bring up nursing or we'll fight." Freshman year of high school someone spilled soda all over one of my textbooks in the library after I left it sitting on a table with Amy. She said she had gotten up to go to the bathroom and came back and found it like that. Like, I'm so freaking dumb. So far I haven't said a word to Amy or anyone who knows her besides my parents. Some people have said maybe she flunked out of college and was just embarrassed and thought you would judge her, but obviously you're going to support her no matter what. Others have said confront her and see if there is a good explanation. Others still have said just ghost her, time to cut and run. She's texted me a few times recently and I just haven't known what to say. Hello, I realize your life is a lie. TLDR, my high school friend has been lying about graduating from college and becoming a nurse for 10 years, to me and others, and I realized she's probably been telling smaller lies as long as I've known her. I think I need to tell her that I know. What is the best way to approach this conversation? I feel like I would cry on a phone call, but texting feels like dropping a bomb on her, and I'm mad but I'm not trying to upset her or send her into a spiral. Stories number 22. Am I the asshole for telling my dad I don't care if he's absent at my wedding? For some backstory, I, F24, have a rough relationship with my dad's, M43, wife, E, F41. They got together in 2006, married in 2011, and have had 2 children since then. E has never liked me. I was introduced to her when I was 7 and things were instantly sour. She was mean, snarky, and had no interest in me whatsoever. Now, as an adult, I can tolerate her behavior, which has gotten significantly worse as I've grown up and began to talk back. The issue lies with the fact that my dad has always allowed it. I'm a grown woman and can handle myself now, as I've been doing for years, but when I was a child, he had nothing to say about her borderline abusive behavior and will find ways to change the subject, excuse it whenever it's brought up. This has significantly damaged our relationship, and we're low contact as of now. So, I'm getting married in November this year to J, M25. We've been together for 11 years. E is insistent that she will be there. She will not. I have made this clear since we got engaged in November 2023. My dad is invited, but I made it plainly clear last year that she wasn't welcome as a result of her behavior, attitude, and treatment of the both of us. It's worth mentioning here that J also doesn't want E present as she is discriminatory. J is trans, FTM, and E will dead name him, make comments about it all, and is overall hateful. He is also defensive of me given that he has been with me for the majority of E's treatment. So, my dad met with me last week and told me that if he wasn't present at my wedding, he wouldn't be either. I honestly expected something like this to happen, so I said that it was fine. He was confused and asked me to elaborate, so I explained that he didn't have to attend, but it meant that I would never speak to him again. That I had dealt with him choosing E over me for almost 20 years and that my wedding, of his first and only daughter, being a subject of debate was the final straw. He said nothing for a moment afterwards and then got up and left. E has been blowing up my phone with explicit texts, but it's been radio silence from my dad since our chat. As I said, I've dealt with E's treatment, and by extension, my dad's silence for almost 2 decades. My wedding feels like a good place to finally end this all, to start over. I don't see a way to fix this, or our relationship, as long as he's with E. Am I the asshole for telling my dad I don't care if he's present at my wedding? Edit, same post, just to say thank you so much for the responses. I didn't expect this at all of the advice, guidance, and kind words are amazing. I'm struggling to respond to everybody, but just know I'm reading every comment. Also, thank you for all the well wishes for the wedding. Thank you, truly. Update, am I the asshole for telling my dad I don't care if he's present at my wedding? Firstly, thank you all so very much. The overwhelming amount of advice, support, feedback and kind words meant more than you could ever know. So, my wedding was just over a week ago, and it was absolutely perfect. It was me and Jay surrounded by the people we love and the ones who love us most. Neither my dad or E were there. Following our last talk where I told him I didn't care if he was present, it was complete silence from him for just over a month. I took my dad's silence as his mind made up, and I actually felt at ease with it, which was another huge wake-up call. He finally messaged me in October and asked to talk over the phone. I told Jay and he said to do it and use the opportunity to make my final choice on the matter, and set it in stone. So we spoke. He asked that I allow E at the wedding, I said no. He said that he wouldn't come if she wasn't there, I said I didn't care. We went back and forth for a little bit, mostly just repeating ourselves, until he basically said, "Is this really the hill you want to die on?" I said yes, told him that he had a week to give me a simple yes or no as to whether he would be there, and hung up. He messaged me a couple of days later with a long paragraph about how I was giving him ultimatums, making him choose, holding on to the past, petty and disrespectful, etc. And something snapped. I said that he had more than enough chances to attempt to make things right but that I was done, and blocked him. On the day of my wedding, I tried not to think about it and it was honestly easier than I thought, to the point I didn't realize he wasn't there until midway through the ceremony. I was hearing from mutual friends and family that my dad has been pretty silent on the whole thing. Other members of my family, close friends, were present at the wedding and asked why my dad wasn't there, and I just told them it was a story for another day, not something I wanted to get into on my wedding. Honestly, this entire situation is just draining. I've known for a long time that it would end in flames at some point or another, and I'm not entirely sure why I held out that little bit of hope for so long. I genuinely feel at peace for the first time in years, and relieved that I no longer have to deal with him or E. I'm in bed with my now husband writing this post, and feeling better than ever. I've realized I gave him too much of my time and patience when he didn't deserve it. This toxic chapter of my life is done. I'm more in love with my childhood sweetheart than I thought was possible and can't stop grinning at the fact I get to call him my husband. Again, thank you so very much for the responses. You're all a lot wiser than I am. Have a great day, everyone. Stories number 23. My son got called into the principal's office. What he did made me sick to my stomach. When I got to the principal's office, he gingerly placed a small sandwich bag onto his desk. Inside was half a dozen bloody teeth. Miss Boyd, Marcus went around at recess hunting down anybody with a loose tooth. He ripped these all out and stole them for himself. I am so sorry, I said, he's never done anything like this before. It'd be best if Marcus went home for the day. Yes, of course, I'll take him right now. I got up to leave, but the principal stopped me. Would you mind taking the teeth with you, he said, if I look at them any longer, I'm gonna hurl. Sure, I said. The drive home was silent. I wanted to yell at Marcus, but at the same time I knew this was partially my fault. Yesterday Marcus lost his final baby tooth, but I didn't have any change for the tooth fairy. All I had in my purse was a 20, so I thought, what the hell? It's his final tooth, so why not give him the 20? The money must have gone to his head. He had taken enough teeth at school to get over $100. Marcus, I said, you're old enough now that I think you should know there's no such thing as the tooth fairy. Yes there is, Marcus said, scowling. No, baby, mommy's the one who puts money under your pillow at night. I saw her. What? He was fast asleep when I put the money under his pillow. She made me get her more teeth. She said she'd hurt me if I didn't. Marcus, this isn't funny. The tooth fairy isn't real, and what you did at school was cruel. Go to your room and think about what you did. Fine, Marcus cried, and ran out of the car. I went inside and realized I still had the bag of teeth in my pocket. I threw it away in the kitchen and got on with my day. That night I had a terrible nightmare. I was lying down in bed when someone small opened the door. At first, I thought it was Marcus, but then I saw their face. White and angular, with an impossibly large smile that went ear to ear. She wore a white dress, had white hair, and white eyes with no pupils. I wanted to get up, but I was paralyzed. She jumped onto the bed and crawled onto my chest. She opened my mouth, reached in, and grabbed one of my teeth, then pulled. I woke up screaming. I put my fingers in my mouth, but thankfully my teeth were all there. That was fucked up. I went downstairs to make myself a cup of tea and shake off the nightmare. When I threw the tea bag into the trash, I heard something. A clinking that could only be one thing. I looked in the trash, and there in the sandwich bag was half a dozen bloody coins. Stories number 24. Am I the asshole here for refusing to uninvite my maid of honor's ex to my wedding? Okay, let me explain. I have known Kate, 23F, who was supposed to be my maid of honor, since 7th grade. When we were in 11th grade, she started having some complications with her home life and she moved in with me, my parents, my younger sister, and my older brother whenever he was home from college for the rest of high school. One of my parents' only big rules was that we were not allowed to have significant others over at the house without their permission. Kate was always pretty quiet and followed the rules, so imagine my surprise when I walked into Kate's makeshift room to get my charger and found my brother asleep, in her bed with her. I probably overrated just a little, because I woke them up and told them they needed to rethink this situation. I said if our parents found out, they'd probably kick Kate out, and if anything happened between the two of them it could ruin Kate's relationship with my whole family. Kate promised she would be careful and wouldn't let anything put our friendship in jeopardy. They didn't get caught and told my parents once Kate finally graduated. All seemed okay. Kate and my brother, 25M, dated on and off throughout the rest of her high school experience, and part of the way through college, too. Their relationship was always very unhealthy and unstable, and my brother finally cut ties with her permanently over the summer before our junior year of college when he graduated and found a job a few hours away. Kate did not handle this well. We actually didn't talk at all for a few months, but reconciled when she came home for winter break. We mended our friendship but steered clear of mentioning my brother whenever we were together. My 24M husband and I have been together since my sophomore year of college. Kate had always been the biggest supporter of our relationship, so, when it was time to pick a maid of honor after we got engaged, the choice seemed obvious. My now husband became close friends with my brother after we got engaged and actually ended up making him one of his groomsmen. I mentioned this casually in front of Kate, who didn't seem to have much of a reaction, so I thought we would be in the clear since they had broken up about 3 years ago and Kate had had other boyfriends since him. The problem arose 3 days before the wedding. Kate found out that my brother was bringing a +1 to my wedding. Out of nowhere she blew up on me, telling me I was a horrible friend for letting him do that. I apologized but reminded her that he is my brother and is important to me, too. She stormed out and refused to talk to me the rest of the day. The next day, she showed up at my apartment and apologized for yelling. She said, I will still attend your wedding as long as he isn't there. I said, he. She responded, your brother. Shocked, I explained to her that I couldn't just uninvite him to the wedding, he's my family. She told me she's my family too. I said I could try to talk to him about not bringing a +1, but she shut that down, saying that wasn't good enough because now she knows there would have been another girl there. She then repeated that if my brother is at my wedding, she won't be. I honestly don't think she expected me to do what I did, but I told her if she was making me choose which of them I'd rather have at my wedding, I wouldn't choose the person who gave me the ultimatum. I said my brother was coming to my wedding, end of story. She lost her mind screaming at me before leaving my apartment and blocking me on everything. It's been almost 2 months since everything happened. My wedding was incredible, and my cousin stepped up to be my maid of honor. My brother and his date were wonderful company and I am glad I didn't uninvite them. However, this week I have been reflecting on Kate and I's relationship and have been feeling really down. I can't help but think I might have been a bit too harsh in making the decision I did, but I also don't know what a good alternative would have been. Yes, they're exes, but one of them is my brother and the other was my best friend. What else could I have done? Also, Kate had promised me years ago that she wouldn't let anything between them ruin our friendship. Am I wrong to hold her to that standard we set like 6 years ago? I honestly don't know. Please tell me, am I the asshole here? Stories number 25. My 32F wife, 30F, of 4 years is overteaching our kids, 2 and 4M. Everything is either a learning experience or an opportunity to learn a skill. I feel like I'm living in a children's workbook and I can't anymore. No, my wife is not actually a teacher. So our kids are to the ages where they're becoming little people and it's awesome. Our older loves being a big brother, and the younger is growing by leaps and bounds. Life is pretty damned good. Except we can't go out of the house without it being a completely out of control learning experience or an opportunity for skill building. The best way to illustrate this is through examples. The other day we're at the grocery store. The older boy is walking, the younger is in the shopping cart. We have like 10 or so things to buy. And there's my wife to our older son, who we'll call John, I guess. John, can you count how many items are in the cart? What line should we go in? Do we need to wait our turn? Is it our turn yet? Oh look, it's our turn. What do we do with our things? No, we don't put them on the desk, that's not called a desk, it's called a check stand. Can you say that word, honey? Check stand. What's the person we pay called? Can you read his name? This thing is called a credit card. Do you know how it works? On and on and on and on. Everyone in that damn line was rolling their eyes and giving me sympathetic looks. Sometimes my wife will let the younger Bill help or be present during chores and meal prep or things like that. It's more of the same. Bill, this is a spoon. This is a knife. This is called a ladle and this is what we do with it. This is a cup. These are noodles, we need to put them in water that's boiling, and you know water is boiling when you see bubbles, to make them soft enough to eat. This is dish soap, it makes the dishes clean. He's 2 for God's sake. It's just everything is learned to death. The other night we were out for a walk and a little kitten darted across the street. Now, a normal parent might ask the kid what animal that was. If he says a cat or a kitten, she'd say good job and move on. John said it was a cat. My wife said yes, it's a cat, but it's a baby cat. Do you know what a baby cat is called? Is a cat a mammal or a reptile? How do you know? How do mammals raise their young? Do all mammals have fur? I told her I was getting a headache, she could finish the walk with the kids and meet me at home. It wasn't a lie, really. Something similar happened at the fair too. I'm not exaggerating when I say the kids never got to go on one ride and never got to eat one treat because they were so busy learning and building skills, and I can't even deal with that phrase anymore. It makes me want to scream. Anytime I bring it up, like honey, just let them have fun. We can talk about what they learned on the way home I'll get, but this is such a great opportunity for them to build skills. They won't remember in 2 hours. If I want to get them a simple, stupid toy that's just for fun, like something they can throw around or a stuffed toy or something, nope, that doesn't help them build any skills. Or a ball is great for helping them build coordination skills. Everything in our lives in a learning experience. It's either skill building, if we I can't anymore. Or we the kids never get to do the activity because we have to learn about it. I've talked to her. God knows I've talked to her. I've said it great she wants to give our kids such a head start, and make sure they have good life skills for when they need them, but everything doesn't need to be a learning activity. They can't just color random designs on paper, they have to build skills. Then we have to go through the primary colors and learn about crayons and then do some skill building or enrichment activity. They can't just have fun. They can't just play. After the fair, I lost my shit that night. She was getting undressed and remarked how much fun the kids had. I am not proud to say I blew my stack. This was after at least 100 conversations with various approaches about this, and I ended up shouting no, they did not have fun. They didn't get to ride the Ferris wheel, they got a physics lesson. They didn't get to eat deep-fried anything, they got a nutrition lesson. They didn't get to play games, they got a counting lesson. They didn't get to try to win a goldfish, they got a zoology lesson. Nothing the kids did could possibly considered fun in any universe. And, now I'm an apathetic father leaving her to do all the teaching when they're my kids too. I'm at the end of my rope. It's not like I never want them to have learning experiences. It's not like I never want them to do anything educational. But they need to just be fucking kids sometimes too, and she thinks she's making learning fun when nothing is fun anymore. And I can't listen to any more of these buzzwords like skill building and enrichment and everything repeated 50 times to the kids or I'm going to lose my ever-loving mind. Help me Reddit. TLDR, my life is an elementary school classroom. My kids never get to just have fun because they always have to learn. Apparently, that makes me a terrible father. Wife won't even entertain my opinions on the matter. Who do I do? Update September 22, 2016. I didn't mean to completely abandon this post. I just had no idea it would blow up like it did, and by the time I got home from work, there were more comments than I could possibly answer. Thank you everyone. To answer some questions, I saw, the kids are bored to death. Bill, being only 2, isn't super verbal obviously, but John has asked on more than one occasion why we can't do what we came for, basically. Using the fair again, he asked why he couldn't go on the kiddie Ferris wheel. My wife basically ignored him and just kept teaching. That's part of the reason why I was so mad that night. It seems much more about her than the kids' development at all. I talk to my sons a lot, or at least I try to. I can't really bring up anything without my wife coming in and teaching or suggesting we do something else to build some skills. I feel like she's actually getting in the way of my own relationship with my kids. I guess I had more to unpack about this than I thought. But on to the update. This couldn't have been timed any better if I'd planned it. So John is 4. We have him in a pre-K type class 3 days a week. The very day I made my post, I got a call from the teacher. She basically told me that John is a very smart little boy, that he seems to know a little bit about everything and has a great vocabulary and memory. But what she said next just about made me tear up and seriously consider a divorce. There have been several instances since the class started where John has been left to his own devices. They have some structured activities during the day, and some semi-structured. Like times when the kids will be painting, but they're free to paint whatever and however they want. They also have some unstructured time, where they're free to play with the toys in the classroom. Some are learning type toys, some are just toys like the large Lego blocks, stuffed toys, balls, things like that. Well, the first time John was presented with watercolor paints and a blank piece of paper, he did nothing. The teacher blew it off as nervousness, since this is a lot of kids' first experience with being around a large number of peers away from home. She also noticed he didn't really play much with the other children. She tried to help him join in some of their games, but he didn't seem interested. She decided to call me after this incident. The class was given a box of metallic crayons and a black piece of construction paper. John did the same thing again. The teacher came over and asked him what he'd like to draw. He said he didn't know. She gave some suggestions like his favorite cartoon character, if we have a cat or a dog to draw his pet, if we didn't, draw a cat or a dog he might like to have, draw a space alien and a spaceship, and he still said he didn't know what to draw. After a few more suggestions from the teacher, John apparently looked at her and said, I just don't know what skill I'm supposed to learning. Like I said, I nearly broke down. I guess I never put it together. I should have, but I never did, and I'm as much at fault for that as my wife is for this whole thing. My sons have no social skills. They have no creativity. They have no imagination. They don't know that sometimes the purpose of fun is to have fun because they've never been exposed to it. I kinda hate myself for not extrapolating this. So basically we're raising walking encyclopedias with no personality. They aren't actually building any skills at all. I have a feeling they'd learn to hold crayons and draw by the time they're old enough to leave the house. They'll also be able to count, cook a simple meal, and understand that a washing machine gets clothes clean. What they won't understand is the really important stuff. They won't make and learn from mistakes with friends. They won't be able to relate to kids their own ages. They won't understand what activities are appropriate and not appropriate when they get older and start doing things without us. They'll probably end up codependent because they'll always be waiting for someone else to tell them what to do. They'll be abusing magnets. I had to come to Jesus with my wife when she got home. I didn't let her call the teacher and tell her what's what. Instead, I told her that I'd call the family therapist, and if she wanted to stay married, we were also going to couples counseling. No ifs, ands, or buts on any of it. SHE needs to build some damn parenting skills, and I need to learn how to grasp the concept of if A, then B. I did not leave room for negotiation. I accept my fault in this. I was an only child myself, my parents were pretty hands-off, for the most part, and I haven't really had a lot of occasion in my adult life to spend a great deal of time with young children, or with other parents of young children. Just because I knew what was wrong, apparently didn't automatically teach me what was right. I also want us to go to parenting classes eventually, but that's at a different point assuming we get through all the rest of this stuff. I want to thank everyone for their comments, and I'll be more attentive to this thread if there's anything else you'd like to know. TLDR, we're raising socially retarded robots who don't understand fun and have no personalities. I'm just as much at fault and am trying to fix it in a big way. Stories number 26. Am I the asshole for refusing to leave a wedding because I wore a dress that looks white under a black light? A few months ago I attended a close friend's wedding with my husband. I wore a yellow dress. Think like Belle in Beauty of the Beast yellow. Bumblebee yellow. So yellow that I did not question if it was appropriate or not to wear to a wedding, and neither did my friends nor family. I arrive at the wedding, we have the ceremony, the cocktail hour, the dinner and the reception. I get many compliments on the dress and the bride even comments on how much she loves it several times. Towards the end of the reception the venue dimmed the lights and turned on some black lights. These black lights made my dress appear more white than yellow. A member of the wedding party approached me while the black lights were on and stated that I needed to leave because my dress was white and inappropriate. I stated that the dress was yellow but the black lights were making it appear white. The member of the wedding party stated that if I didn't leave she would make me. I stated I'm here to celebrate my friend, repeated that the dress was yellow and said I will not be leaving early. Bride and groom hadn't left yet and I came from overseas. The conversation, while heated, did not have raised voices or foul language from either side. But I will say it was tense. The wedding party member walked off and I watched as they immediately went to talk to the groom, angrily pointing in my direction. The groom shrugged and continued to dance. The next morning, I was approached by a different friend at breakfast, not in the wedding party, who stated that they heard what happened and that I should have left when asked, because it made people uncomfortable and that I made it about me partying rather than respecting wedding etiquette. I have felt incredibly embarrassed about this since. So am I the asshole for not leaving the wedding when asked? TLDR, wore yellow dress that looked white under black lights. Was asked to leave by a member of the wedding party. Didn't leave. Told I made others uncomfortable by a friend the next day. Edit, a link to a similar dress. This is not the dress I wore but similar-ish in style and color. Also, the most controversial thing seemed to be the black light dance party at this wedding. It was the last hour or so and was just a way to have fun. It was not as weird or as tacky as people are making it out to be. Stories number 27. I got adopted into a friend group. I just uprooted my life for a job, moved 800 miles away to a city I'd never even visited. I went to a sports bar to watch my alma mater disappoint me, go Dogs, and was sitting by myself at the bar. The bartender was cracking jokes with a guy who's clearly a regular at that bar, telling him to buck a number and she'd flip to a page in a cocktail recipe book and they'd take a look at some ridiculous complicated drink. He'd say, "Can you make me one of those?" And of course, she couldn't because it's a sports bar, not a cocktail lounge. I jokingly suggested a complicated drink, and then the guy started talking to me. Next thing I know he's introducing me to half the bar. They suggest hitting a different bar in the area to see some other friends, and invite me to come along, and I ended up bar hopping for a little bit, talking with their whole friend group, making jokes with them. They even gave me some of the pizza they ordered and bought me a couple of beers, saying they wanted to welcome me to the city. It was such a fun time, and I felt so much better about moving. We exchanged numbers and I got invited to a birthday party next week. Even if it fizzles out, I'm glad people are so friendly in the Midwest. I feel much less lonely. Stories number 28. Am I the asshole? My ex-husband opened up credit cards in my name and our son's name. I'm withholding child support payments from him until after his trial. My ex and I have a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old together. In January, he opened a credit card in my name and in the name of our 19-year-old. I got an email alert saying a new credit card had been opened and I was able to have it canceled pretty quickly. My son wasn't so lucky and ended up with about $5,000 of credit card debt. He didn't even know about it until August. We both went to the cops and made reports. We gave them our evidence and I guess they pulled information from Chase. I can see pending charge in a public records search for identity theft. My son needed a car for college and couldn't qualify for one due to the credit card. I purchased him one and I'm now withholding child support payments and using them to pay for the car insurance. I petitioned a judge for the arrangement and he never showed up to court to contest it. I was told withholding is alright, provided I make a full back payment if he isn't found guilty. I was also told if that was the case, I could file a civil suit against him and withhold pending the conclusion, with a full back payment minus awards costs at the end. My husband now says that isn't fair. He only has our 16-year-old 4 to 6 nights a month and he says he needs the money, $750, for our other son. He also said it's not fair because I have an attorney and he doesn't. This has been cleared with a judge, but he has been blowing up Facebook calling me a deadbeat. He's getting a surprising amount of supportive comments and I'm blocked from his page so I can't even share he stole his own son's identity. Am I the asshole for what I'm doing? And is there anything else I should be doing? Stories number 29. My sister-in-law refuses to come to Thanksgiving because of my guest's pronouns. How do I avoid further conflict? Advice needed. Hi all. I'm a huge fan of this subreddit and the podcast. I've never posted here before but I do really think I need an outside perspective here. I, 27NB, live with my parents in the Northeast US, and my 2 older brothers, let's call them Drake, 30M, and Alex, 36M, are coming up from the Midwest Southern state that they live in. They're both supposed to be bringing their girlfriends. Drake is engaged to a girl we'll call Teresa, 30-ish F, and Alex is dating but will soon be engaged to a girl we'll call Sadie, 25-ish F. For context, I've never met Sadie, and I've only met Teresa once, but it was at a big family dinner like 2 years ago where we barely talked. My family generally is also very conservative and religious, though I'm personally neither. Now, on to the conflict. I'm also inviting my friend that we'll call Sam, 35NB. They've been going through a really rough time this year and don't really have any family, but they're one of my best friends and I didn't want them to spend a holiday alone. I texted my brothers last Friday just to say basically, my friend is joining us for Thanksgiving. They use they/them pronouns, and I don't really care what your opinions are on it, I expect you to please be respectful. Completely reasonable, right? Alex texts back saying that's fine, and I never get a response from Drake. So imagine my surprise when my mother asks me the next day what exactly I told my brothers. I tell her exactly what I told the boys, and she explains to me that Drake had called her and said that Teresa no longer wanted to come. My mom says that when she pressed Drake on why, Teresa had said that she'd apparently had a bad experience before and didn't feel comfortable anymore. Mom continued to press him on it, thinking maybe she'd had a conflict with someone at work or something over their pronouns, but it wasn't even that. Literally all it was that Teresa had gotten into an argument online, and was now deciding that my friend, who she does not know anything about other than their pronouns, is not someone she wants to be around. For what it's worth, my very conservative Christian, Texas-born mother defended me and Sam and told my brother straight up that Teresa didn't have to come if she didn't want to, and that it was her house and she had the final say in who is invited. I'm a bit shocked because I guess I always assumed that if something like this ever happened, my parents would throw me under the bus. I suppose Southern hospitality wins out over transphobia in her mind. I guess I'm just wondering how to proceed. I haven't talked to Drake at all about it, because I have nothing nice or good to say to him or his fiancée at all. I don't want it to turn into further conflict, but he's absolutely the type to resent me for making his fiancée feel unwelcome or something like that. I also feel a bit of disdain for him since we're both full-grown adults and he felt the need to go crying to our mother about this instead of talking to me directly if he had a problem. I don't really talk to my brothers outside of family gatherings, but we still have to deal with each other so I don't want this to be the start of a lifelong grudge. I'm sorry if this is long-winded. If you have any questions or need further info, please let me know and I'll do my best. Thank you in advance. Stories number 30. Am I the asshole for yelling at my girlfriend for taking a shit while I was in the shower? I, 34M, had got home from a long day of work. My GF, 28F, was sleeping. She works nights and usually gets up when I come home. I walked in, kissed her head and told her I was getting in the shower. As I was getting in the shower, she told me she had to use the bathroom. We've been together for almost 2 years so this not the first time and naturally I said yes, assuming she was going to pee like all the other times before. To my shock it was more than pee, the smell was bad. And the mood of my shower was ruined. I started yelling for her to get out and how I didn't understand why she thought that was okay. She got mad at my reaction but I explained if she told me she needed to shit I would have waited to start my shower. So am I the asshole? Stories number 31. Am I overreacting? My wife continues to ignore my needs and now says I'm out of control. So like it says she's been saying she's satisfied only doing missionary but I've always wanted to try or do other things with her for years and she's been ignoring or just been passing them off as me ranting, until recently she suggested we go to marriage counseling because she told me you're getting out of hand and I think this side of you is unhealthy. Once we get help you'll see that you're messed up. This hurt me and made me think heavily about myself. All I wanted was to experience new things with her, which I thought was a okay thing to do with your spouse. I always was nice and asked only as suggestions, so this confused me greatly. We meet our therapist in a week and I'm worried that it's true that I have something wrong with me. Am I overreacting? All I wanted was to try new things with my wife, but I feel like I'm being shut down and not even being given a chance, and now I'm really frustrated on what to do. Am I wrong? Stories number 32. Aita for kicking my unborn child's father out after finding he'd been taking videos of us doing the deed without my knowledge for months. So I am female, 27. He is male, 29. I am set to give birth to our child in 3 months. I went through his phone the other night to find videos he's been taking of us doing the deed since July. I also found he had subscribed to someone's OnlyFans. Like, is there not enough free porn available in the world? You really have to do all of this? Let's not mention also he currently doesn't have a job. So $5 for an OnlyFans subscription is wild. I am upset about both things. But when I addressed him, he trashed the house and stormed out, and didn't come back until the next day when I told him his things were on the porch. He barely apologized for either action, tried to put it on me for looking through his phone. He looks through mine all the time, and this was the first time I looked through his in probably a year. Because he is always going through my phone, looking at my texts with my best friends to see if we spoke about him, etc. I told him he should communicate better, and let me know, and I would freely give him his phone. So his excuse here was, we could have communicated the way you wanted us to, and you wouldn't have had to go through my phone without my knowing. My response was, you could have communicated that you were taking these videos of us while we were doing the deed months ago, and I wouldn't have had to. He really makes me feel as if I'm the one in the wrong when he has multiple videos of his pregnant girlfriend being kicked down by him on his phone. It's nasty and I feel violated. He's upset I kicked him out. I told him it's the principle. He could have told me he wanted those videos. AITH. Stories number 33. My crippled ass falsely blamed work health insurance premium hike. How to handle this? I've been with my employer 3 years. It was great until earlier this year, when someone at my level got promoted to my manager. 3 days into his new role he accused me of lying about my disability, visible and invisible, and put me on a PIP demanding I stop being disabled and stop using ADA accommodations. I got that retracted, but it's always going to be there that it happened, and that there are pockets who believe I'm faking just to be a bitch. I just announced at work that I am getting a major surgery next month related to my disability. I work in a very snotty industry where for the most part extreme bullying for being disabled is normal. Working for a full distributed company is the only way I get somewhat of a break from that bullshit. Yesterday we had a presentation from HR about benefits that we had to attend. So I went, and the health insurance benefits are being cut while the premiums are skyrocketing. Someone expressed frustration and concern. HR guy said demographics and consumption. Someone else asked if that means disabled people drive up the prices, and HR said yes. I said, I'd like everyone to be aware I've been on my husband's health insurance plan for over a decade and will be continuing that. Awkward silence. What else should I do to address this? I don't appreciate being made the scapegoat because my employer is a fucking cheapskate. And yes, I am looking, but this market sucks. Oh, and my disability happened because I survived an attempted M*RDR by a bigoted evangelical psycho with a rap sheet on the news, court cases, the works. If someone thinks I'm faking, they're choosing to believe that false narrative. Stories number 34. I, 34M, just found out my wife, 32F, cheated on me with her then boss 2 years ago and have no idea what to do. Please, can I get some advice? TLDR, my wife cheated on me 2 years ago before we got married and I'm at a loss for what to do next. Please, can I get some advice? Throwaway account for privacy, and apologies in advance for the length. Conciseness has never been a strong point. I, 34M, have been with my wife, 32F, for 10 years, married the last 2. 5. A few days ago I found out that a few months before we got married she had cheated on me in a one-time thing with her then boss, hereafter AP. She has since changed jobs for unrelated reasons. I'm trying to work out where I go from here, but this is not helped by the fact that we share most of our mutual friends, and AP is also part of our regular social circle, but I'm trying to keep this private while I work out what to do next. So thought baring my soul to a bunch of objective strangers on Reddit might be the next best thing. For background, we've had no major issues or fights prior to this, and have always been an extremely close couple from day one, spend all our time together, and the type who, if we were isolated in the same room for a year, we'd be quite content. As such, our lives are extremely intertwined to the point of happy codependence. She's my best friend and we were very much looking forward to settling down and starting a family now that we're in a financial position to do so. As such, any decision I make on this will significantly impact my life for years to come. Then 3 days ago I received a message out of the blue from AP's now ex-partner saying she had proof of cheating and wanted to let me know, for whatever reason the scumbag had kept a list of his conquests, his partner had found it, and lo and behold my wife's name was on with the year 2022, location and rating. As I was trying to get my head around what I was seeing I walked into my kitchen and saw my wife on the phone with a panicked look, no prizes for guessing who was on the other end of that phone, at which point she now had something to tell me. The rationale and explanation that's been given is it was a last-minute panic before our wedding over the fact that she had never slept with another guy, we were each other's firsts in that area, and between her and AP they thought sleeping together would be a good solution. Afterwards they decided never to speak of it again, pretend like it never happened out of guilt and the fact it meant nothing. When I inevitably asked WTAF, in so many words, there was no excuses and the guilt tears were genuine. She tried to argue that she'd also been lied to as AP said this was the only time he'd done something like that, shock horror he lied, but I had to bluntly explain it's irrelevant to me. She's blocked AP now, has offered for us to move somewhere else in the UK, move out herself, do couples counseling, but it's all a bit white noise at the moment. The mental image of them together is branded in my brain, but above all what I can't quite get past is how effectively she hid this from me, internally compartmentalizing almost impressively so that I had literally no inclination anything had happened. That over the course of a few weeks this was planned and then one morning she left for work as normal with the full intention of sleeping with AP, did the deed and came home later and lied to me without missing a beat. She's insistent this was the only time but I'm not sure how much I trust her anymore. With all that being said, I have absolutely no clue what to do now. On an hourly basis I flip from wanting to get revenge even, separate, pretend it never happened, or drink myself into a coma. So any advice from people who have been in the same position would be greatly appreciated. I would love to be able just push past this but no it's not fair to either of us if I can't genuinely let go of it otherwise. I will just resent her the entire time we are together but I'm not even sure how to get to the point of knowing if I can. Stories number 35. Neighbor is a POS. So me and my wife, both 59, have this neighbor, 35-ish F, who has 2 kids, about 10 F and 8 M. She has this guy over. Often, 73 M, who is kind toward me and my wife. He is rather flamboyant, but always is respectful. There is an age difference. This adds nothing to the story yet it makes good reading. These kids come to my yard uninvited, happens often and I am cool with it. They can escape the yelling and violence, oh, we have not talked about that. They sit in my yard and we laugh. I bring out a few guitars and pretend to teach them, just having nonsense fun. Then neighbor and her geriatric piece rush from the house, escape into a car and are gone for an hour. Nothing spoken to me, can you watch my kids? I will be back at this time. Nothing. So I am in my yard with 2 kids whose mom has driven off for over an hour. This is a respectable neighborhood and my wife and I are professional. I understand that CPS or whatever is an option. I invite them to church a lot, talk to them about Jesus. I am totally nice and respectful. They have always been civil toward me, but these kids do not need to be abandoned at my house while mom, usually stoned, and her 70s POS, usually drunk, disappear for who knows how long. I don't even know what kind of help to ask for. I do not want the kids to go into foster care. I do not care what happens to their mom or POS boyfriend. My wife and I have talked about it. We have given up being nice. I need some objective views. Stories number 36. Got a terrible performance review. Just had my midterm performance review as an intern and it was awful. The main problem was that I was too quiet and didn't ask questions. This made my progress slower and of less quality. But man, they didn't write one strength. The wording was pretty harsh too, for example she appears to not be trying and doing the bare minimum. I know I'm quiet, I have anxiety, but I really did try my best given the circumstances I'm in. I guess my best isn't good enough yet. I'm not exactly comfortable in my environment either. They don't seem to understand that it's a little daunting to be a 20-year-old brown girl in a room full of middle-aged white men. Any advice? I don't want to return to this company but I don't want to leave on a bad foot either. Stories number 37. I'm not made for this life. I am miserable. 27, no passions, no real drive, no degree. I have an okay job but it stresses me the hell out because I'm important, my nightmare. I am a job hopper, once I get overwhelmed, I quit and find something new. It's getting old, I want to be financially stable, but what else can I do? I just hate working. I start performing badly or calling off a ton because I can't focus, because I'm overwhelmed, because I just suck. There's nothing I'm interested in. I have no skills. I want to retire, like, tomorrow. I feel doomed and hopeless. I come from a family of hardworking women that just don't get it. My husband has a great job. My friends have thriving careers. Now I know most people don't actively enjoy working, but I can't just grit my teeth and push through. I'm just not strong enough. There's so many things I want to do that I can't and probably will never be able to. I just want a low-stress job where I can be invisible but get paid a livable wage, and I don't think that exists. Stories number 38. I got a new job, and a lot of people are resigning. I started working at a mid-sized company 1 month ago. We're a team of around 40 people in the UK, and most of us are new since the company is growing and hiring more staff. However, since I joined, 2 people who had been in their roles for less than a year have resigned. I can't pinpoint any specific reasons for their departures, but it's becoming concerning that every time I join an all-hands call, I hear about someone from either the UK or other regions resigning. I'm thinking of reaching out to one of the people who's leaving to ask if they'd be open to sharing their thoughts on why they decided to leave. However, we've only met briefly, less than a month, and I'm not sure if it would be appropriate to approach them. Any advice on how to navigate this? I checked Glassdoor and everything looks okay. The only thing is that the company is a bit disorganized, startup style, and there isn't a clear HR growth plan for our roles. But I wouldn't expect someone to leave that soon when the paycheck is good and the team atmosphere seems right. Stories number 39. My boss is setting me up. Last week we got a phone call about a large, weekend event for a time span that was flexible in the spring. I took down all the notes like I should, since I am admin, took a step down for this role but have for years in this industry, not to mention a ton of experience in other fields that is valuable. When my boss came in I told and gave the note. She then decided she didn't want to do it, as she was checking on a large event that was currently still taking place and she wanted to leave. So we discussed what I was to email to this person, and she went and picked a date out in a weekend and told me the next day to check with the other event coordinator to make sure we can make this work. As my boss would not be there the next day, so I typed up the email. Before I hit send I copied and pasted it onto a Word document and gave it to her to look at. I took it to her desk and she wrote on it, marked stuff off, and made a comment on how wordy it was because I repeated everything back that this lady said that she wanted. I used to do this with our work in group sales. Plus I find if there's any miscommunication in the beginning it gets picked up right away. So my boss told me to fix it and go ahead and send it. Well, at this time she went ahead and left and I finished fixing it to what she wanted, and I want to add she is 17 years my senior, has never worked a day in this industry nor in a hotel, and is exactly 4 months longer at this property than I have. So she is still new to this process but talks down to me constantly. So phones start ringing, I get really busy as I'm the only one in the office. When I went, he hit send, it automatically spell checked. That's when I got busy. In the meantime, I thought it had done spell checking and had sent, as I had pulled up another document for someone on the phone and didn't even pay attention. Well, the next day when I came in I noticed it hadn't sent. And so I'll look to the email and noticed it immediately sent it, and then sent a follow-up email to the lady explaining what had happened and why it taken me so long to respond. When the other event coordinator came in I said immediately what had happened and she laughed and we talked about that for a minute because she's done it too. Then we discussed this date and how she hated this particular type of group that wanted to come in for the whole weekend. She didn't want to take it, didn't think it would work. So the following day when my boss comes back, she realizes she is getting her but jumped because she had already picked out a date and had given me the date to tell this lady this is what we have available. Then she denies ever sending or ever telling me to send the email, stating that she had never seen what I had written before. That I had never shown her what I had written before. And that she had left as soon as the lady had called. That is a lie because she stayed until after 4 o'clock and this lady called at 3 o'clock. Today I was called into the office for a verbal warning and my director kept on saying, well, it's your word against my word. She had to have said that at least 3 or 4 times. And then wanted me to sign a document. I refused to sign it as this was a verbal, and she kept lecturing me about not doing it again. I told her I'm not the one that gave the date because I'm not comfortable doing that. It's not my job, so I don't do it. And she just kept on saying, I know you believe. No, I know what you did. 2 weeks before this happened, or maybe a week before, she and someone else were in the office with the manager. They've been there for over an hour and I thought the meeting had wrapped up. I had a phone call and this gentleman was in a time crunch and was going to lose money personally. I heard laughing and cutting up and sounding like everybody was having a good time, so I called her extension and tried to get it out in about 10 seconds what I needed to know. But she wouldn't let me talk, she kept interrupting me to where I started stuttering. Then the door opens and she puts her phone down as I could see this from where I was standing at my desk. I did not see my manager, so I thought he had left. Well, since the door opened and she put the phone down, I thought I could go in, so I walked on an office and was talking, trying to get this out, and she kept on over-talking me and then started making fun of me for not being able to get it out. Then started being demeaning to me. She essentially yells at me to get out and do forget to shut the door. Later that afternoon we have a meeting. Then she talks down to me about how when her door is shut that means that she's in a very important meeting. She must have said that 5 times. In a very weird way. The way you would talk to a child who did not understand English. Or understand a language you were speaking. Or a baby. She refuses to accept my help on anything. I know the computer program and platform we use I've used it for 4 years. She questions everything I do, micromanages me. The person in my spot before me had more experience than I did, and my boss did the exact same thing to her. I don't know what to do. I cannot afford to leave this job as it is so close to my house, and I am not financially settled from a recent move and a split with a partner. Not to mention a custody battle. But she does stuff like this all the time. She does stuff or talks to me in front of people to let them know that she is my boss. A power trip. She is evil and narcissistic. Stories number 40. It amazes me how many people don't understand money. I physically cringe when I hear people talk about money. They don't get it. My best friend just got a 2024 Sierra at 4. It's nice, and he can afford it, but Jesus dude. I told him he could buy a 2-year-old loaded Frontier with 15k miles and pay both his kids' college for the same price. 18k each in an Ohio College Advantage plan doubles 2-3 times in 18 years. They even tow about the same, and in 10 years they'll be worth within 4k of each other. I work with another girl who traded her paid-off car for one with a 21% interest rate. Where I work puts 6%, not a match, automatic, in your 401k as long as you set it up, and 2 girls never bothered. It's like people want to be poor. Stories number 41. The caterer no-showed. This is my worst nightmare as a planner. Today the caterer no-showed after confirming they'd be here. They confirmed with me on Friday. Fully ghosted. Multiple phone calls and no answer. They had the food and also all the water, bev, and mocktails. Since it was a wish upon a wedding event, it was a donation. Which means it doesn't even make sense to scam. I sure hope that is a first and a last in my planning career. Thank heavens a nearby restaurant stepped in to save the day, but guests went 2 hours without any liquids, many left. I feel so bad. I did all I could. But this was supposed to be such a beautiful day, a true gift to a couple faced with unimaginable hardship. Update, the original caterer blocked me on all accounts. She blocked the bride on all accounts. Her website no longer works. I don't even know how I could review her if I wanted to. All I did was email her to ask her if she was okay and what happened that she didn't show up. I definitely did not come in guns a-blazing. I truly gave her a chance to explain herself. I'm shook. Also, I'm a wedding planner, but I took over this event 10 days before the wedding. The original lead planner and the couple did not get along, and there was a lot of nastiness. The lead planner yelled at the terminal cancer patient. I'm so upset by that, and it's for the best she was fired. I am glad I stepped in, because the couple loved me, but I inherited a lot of work. I felt like I had nearly an entire wedding to plan in a week. The caterer had already been found by the lead planner, and I had assumed she did her due diligence in checking the caterer's background. But also, it doesn't make sense to scam a wish wedding. I thought it would be okay to have a little more faith in the vendors. I asked the other vendors if they had seen anything like this before. Combined, they had over 100 years of wedding experience. Not a single one of them have seen a caterer no-show. Also, the restaurant that stepped up deserves a medal. I highly recommend Water Street Grill if you're ever in Eastern VA. They truly saved the day. They made food and bev for $50 within a 2 hours notice, and to top it off, they surprised the couple with a $200 gift card and told them that whenever they come to the restaurant that they should tell the wait staff so that they, the owners, will personally come up to thank them and check on them. I am getting emotional over here. Truly amazing people at Water Street Grill. Update 2, the original planner and caterer are not in cahoots. I know the planner personally, and while she was negligent and mean to the cancer patient, she is not nefarious. I also know that this was the planner's first wedding she fully planned, or tried to, outside of her own, so she has very few connections and certainly has not had time to build any loyalty with a caterer. Her business is barely a year old. Name dropping the caterer that no-called, no-showed, Knickknacks Catering. Please don't hire her. I don't want this to happen to anyone else. Stories number 42. Contractors keep calling my phone because someone else gave them my number, so for the past year I've been getting calls from contractors asking if I want any work done on my property. They start off by calling me by name, which is not mine, and then asking if I live at a certain address, which also isn't mine. I tell them I'm not that person, please stop calling my phone. I tell them I don't own any property, please stop calling my phone. I ask them to put me on the do not call list. Sometimes they just hang up, sometimes they just get rude and say things like, why would we stop calling you, have us your number. For a long time I would just hang up before saying anything, because when the call connects it makes this beeping sound when I pick up, so I know it's them before they even say anything. Well, after over a year of this I decided to say yep, that's me when they ask me if I'm that person. When they ask me if I still stay at the address, I say yep, that's my house. When they ask me if I want any solar, landscaping, painting, or driveway work, etc. done, I say yeah, I sure do. Then they tell me they will have someone come out to my property. What time is good for me? I tell them a time when traffic is worst, like late afternoon. Then they call me when they get there and tell me they have been waiting for 10 minutes, and I tell them I had to go to the store real quick and I'll be back in 10 minutes. It's very satisfying. Stories number 43. Am I the jerk for walking out on my mom's perfect date after he crossed every possible line? I, 21F, am a lesbian, and I came out to my family about 6 months ago. Most of them have been great and supportive, but my stepmom, let's call her Angela, 46F, just doesn't seem to get it. She is convinced that I just haven't met the right man yet and seems to think this is just a phase. I've explained to her so many times that I'm not interested in dating men. But every so often, she sets me up with some random guy she claims is so perfect for me, hoping I'll change my mind. Usually, I just go along with it, explaining as nice as possible that I'm only interested in non-men, and then I'll leave when the guy figures out that it's not happening. Last week Angela surprised me. Apparently, she finally listened to me, and set me up with a girl she knew I would like. The whole time until the date she was all excited and she wanted everything to be perfect. As Saturday neared I realized that this date wasn't going to be an easy escape like the others if it turned into a complete disaster. So, I went to the fancy restaurant she chose for us, hoping for the best. On that Saturday I arrived at a fancy restaurant that I personally never would pick for a first date, but sure. The server led me to my table and my heart sank. At our table, instead of a girl, like my stepmother had promised, sat a man, at least 40, maybe 50. Mind you, I am 21, he was at least twice my age. I uncomfortably sat down next to him on the couch and explained as polite as possible that this must be a mistake, because I expected a girl. But this guy just smirked and started bragging about how he came up with the idea to trick me into a date guy instead of a girl, and this frustrated me. I tried to stay calm and thought that maybe he was just delusional like Angelina. So I explained, again, that I was lesbian and that I don't have any interest in men. But this guy started saying stuff like, won't you make a little exception for me? Every time I shuffled away from him, he just scooted even closer me, till the point he almost sat on top of me. And after he kept touching me I latterly wanted to die. Hands on my hips, arm brushing against me, all while I was trying to make it clear I wasn't interested. I explained again that I was not interested in him, but he had to respond with, well, money can change that, right? That comment made me so disgusted that I felt like I was going to puke. But I really didn't expect what happened next. He shoved $50 towards me. While I just stared at the table in complete shock, he leaned in and tried to kiss me. I just grabbed my stuff, told him that no, it wasn't happening, and walked out of the restaurant. The next day, my phone was blown up with texts. Angela had apparently given my date my number, and he had left multiple voicemails screaming and yelling, saying I'd humiliated him and wasted his time. Angela was also furious, saying I was disrespectful and ungrateful and that I'd embarrassed her in front of a family friend. I blocked him, but Angela is still acting like I overreacted. She says I'm rude and won't give people a chance, which feels so hurtful and frustrating. Now, I think that I should apologize to keep the peace, but I'm still feeling totally grossed out. Am I the jerk? Edit. I forgot to mention that the most of those earlier dates are not really dates. I just meet the guy at Starbucks and after 5 minutes of talking we're quickly over it. Angela hasn't done anything like this before, and it wouldn't surprise me if the family friend just played her. And regarding my dad, I don't want to share all the family drama, so let's just say he's not in my life anymore. Stories number 44. Am I the asshole here for telling my friend that her husband was sleeping with my sister? Advice needed, so I posted on the Ami Overacting subreddit describing my situation. My sister was at a party of mine where she was hanging out with all of our friends. My husband thought that she was being flirty with a friend of ours who is married and his wife is pregnant, but I didn't think anything of it as I just thought they were being friendly. I just recently found out that my sister and our friend's husband have been sleeping together since our party. Our friend is in the military with my husband and we have been friends with him and his wife, I'm close with her, for years now. When I found out, I told my sister to break it off and that she was destroying their marriage. She told me that he loved her and wanted to be with her. After posting on the overreaction subreddit, I decided to tell the wife. I told her Monday when my husband and his friend went out to the bar. And she has not stopped crying since. I feel horrible as she is 7 months pregnant also and has now been staying at her mom's. I've thought maybe I should not have told her, made her husband tell her, made my sister tell her. Anyone but me, as I just feel horrible breaking the news to her and seeing the stress it has put her in and the baby. Her husband said this is the only time and he was just not thinking. He has said he never said he loved my sister and it was just a hot fling. My friend thinks she wants to forgive him but also feels like her world is rocked. I also don't know how else to show support to her. Stories number 45. SIL is bitter her ex proposed to me and this got her banned from our family. Am I the asshole here for this? This may be a little confusing but I will try to make it as clear as possible. My 27F fiance's ex is now my older brother's wife, so my SIL. To make it less confusing, my fiance is George, my brother is David and my SIL is Ella. George, 38M, briefly dated Ella, 34F, 4 years ago. Ella wanted to get married and have kids but George did not want this with her. He was also having a lot of issues back then, partying, doing drugs and not being the most reliable person. They dated for 6 months and everything ended in drama because Ella was not able to make George want to settle with her. Soon after their breakup she met my brother and they got married 6 to 7 months after. So yeah, they moved really fast and basically Ella dated her ex, broke up with him, met my brother and got married to him. Everything in only 1 year and a couple of months. I met George 2 years ago and at that time Ella was already married to my bro. Back then I had no idea that George was Ella's ex. When George started to feel attracted to me he changed completely. He quit drinking and doing drugs, he has been sober ever since, started going to therapy and overall became a new person. He did this because he wanted to change and I have been with him during his entire healing journey. I am very proud of him and we have a healthy and amazing relationship. Even if Ella was already married to my brother, she was furious when she found out I was dating George and that he was serious with me. She was so cruel and said a lot of nasty lies. She used to tell everyone that George was grooming me. I was 25 when we became a thing and he was 36. This is not grooming FFS, she lied that George was abusing me, trying to get me to become an addict like him and many other things. This ruined my relationship with my brother because he never did anything to make her stop. George and I announced our engagement to my family last week during my dad's birthday. My parents were happy for us but Ella said it must be nice to be the one to get the ring after someone else struggled to fix him. Again, no reaction from my brother as usual. My parents told her to stop but I just snapped and told her something along the lines he fixed himself UPOS. And yes, it is nice to know I will be married to the man I love more than anything and who loves me the same. But how is it for you knowing that no one else except my idiot brother ever wanted to marry you? Does it feel nice? My parents kicked them out after this. They told her that everybody had enough of her BS. She is insane because although being married she is still bitter over the fact that her ex did not want her. She is officially banned from every family event and my brother is now blaming me. So am I the asshole here in this situation? I don't think I am honestly, but I want to also hear some unbiased perspective. This update will be very long, so if you don't want to waste time reading the first part, you can skip directly to the actual update. Thank you so much for all you comment and reaching out to me. I don't know what I accepted when I posted. I guess I wanted to receive some unbiased feedback from an outside perspective, but I never expected this. I was really overwhelmed with how kind and nice most of you were, so once again thank you and sorry for not being able to reply to all the comments. For those who were not on the same page, I understand and respect that you have a different opinion. From my initial post I have left out a lot of details because it's a long story, but some of you were curious about what actually happened and asked me to provide more details, so buckle up, I will do just that. How I met my future husband. I got asked a lot if I live in a trailer park or small town with only a bar available. The answer is no, we actually live in a big city with a population of a couple millions of people. I met my fiancé through a mutual friend. My girlfriend was dating one of George's colleagues and they all began to hang out for drinks after work since they were all in the same building. At some point I had no plans for that day and my girlfriend invited me to go with them to a bar and this is how we were introduced. After this we started having different group activities together and things slowly progressed. George targeted his ex's younger SIL to spite her. There was no coincidence that we started dating. As absurd as it may sound, it was indeed an ironic coincidence. You may think, out of the millions of people there are in a city, what are the chances for you to start dating your SIL's ex? Well, it happened to me and we did not know about it in the beginning. The girlfriend that asked me to go with them to a bar did not know Ella, never saw her IRL and she never saw her with George. When George met me he had no idea that I had any connection to Ella. So there was no chance for him to be an evil mastermind and intentionally date me just to spite her. I did not take George home to meet my family immediately either. Maybe I am the weird one, but I was never the type to parade my boyfriends in front of my parents if I was not sure the relationship was going to last. I broke the girl's code. I do not consider that I did. Let's be clear, I have a couple of true friends. They have been my friends for many years and I would do anything for them. I am a very loyal person and I know the girl's code very well. When we eventually found out the connection Ella had with both of us, I was shocked and I asked the same question that many of you did: what were the chances? It was a very uncomfortable position to be in. Even though I had no relationship with Ella except the obvious one of her being my SIL, it was strange to know that they dated. I wanted to find out what happened before taking any decision and I did. The way I saw things, there was no reason for me to punish George for having a past. We were in love, we were happy and Ella was already married to my brother. I may have been selfish but I thought, is this man in our relationship worth it? And the answer was yes. To me he was, is, and will always be worth it. Also, we see my brother and Ella only a couple of times a year. Most of the times, for obvious reasons, we prefer to visit my parents separately. George's addictions, so many of you reached out to me being concerned about this and I wanted to thank you for caring and say I am sorry you had to go through traumatic experiences with addicts. Some of your stories were hard to read and I appreciate immensely that you were open to share your experiences with a stranger. I understand why most of you were triggered by my story, but George was not that type of addict. He had a lot of unresolved trauma, he was lonely, unloved and ashamed, so his coping mechanism were parties, alcohol and drugs. His entourage was also not the best. You can imagine that a bunch of 36-year-old party boys girls are no good, but at the end of the day when everyone else went home to their families, wives and kids, these were the people who could provide company to George. I think it was more like all of them providing company to each other so they could feel less lonely. But other than this, George was a functional adult, he had a stable well-paying job, he was and is still working as a software engineer, he was never violent etc. George changed for me. No, George changed for himself and because he wanted to. He told me that I was the trigger that made him want to get his life in order, but in a more meaningful way than just wanting to get into my pants. When we started hanging out as a group with my friend and his colleague, he learned how easy it was to interact and have fun without drugs or alcohol. He also saw that I enjoyed spending time with him, I looked forward to seeing him every time, and he understood that his sober self is not unlovable. He was longing for healthy relationships and normality, but until that moment he felt like he was not deserving to have them. I think the way I helped him was solely because I saw and fell in love with his true self, and that gave him confidence and purpose. I am the golden child, there is no such thing in our family, my parents love my brother and I the same. Of course, when they heard Ella's BS the first time they were worried for me, but I was open with them. I told them how things happened. George was honest and never hid his troubled past from them, and in the end they were okay with our relationship. My parents trust me, trust my judgment, and they only want to see me happy. And in regards to Ella, my parents are just doing what every parent should, defend their child. She was warned before. My parents talked to her, asked her to stop acting like this and told her she is out of line, so it's not like they kicked her out the first time it happened. Now into the update. Yesterday I contacted my brother and asked him to meet me for coffee. It was only the two of us and I think it was the first time I have opened my heart like this in front of him. I started off by apologizing for him being caught in the middle, but I told him I will never apologize or be sorry for loving George. I was honest and told him how much this situation has been affecting me. My brother is the same age as my fiancé, so he is 11 years older than me. During our childhood he was my protector, the person I looked up to. Due to our age difference we never really had many activities in common, and I could not wait for the moment I grow up so I can get to share more with my brother, as adults. But I did not get the chance to do this because of Ella. David would always teach me to value myself, to choose people who treat me right and make me happy, however I am not able to share my happiness with him anymore. I understand why he would wish I never met George, but it still hurts knowing that your brother somehow resents the source of your happiness. David would always defend me when I was younger, even in front of our parents. When I was 15 I was experimenting with makeup and it looked bad, really bad. During a family function one of our uncles got drunk and told me to stop using makeup because I was too young to look like a hooker. David got mad and kicked him out for offending his sister. This is the kind of brother he used to be, and to now see how he stays aside and allows his wife to be offensive and cruel, it's really hurtful. I do not care that she is like that towards me, I don't like Ella at all and I could easily ignore her. But what gets to me the most is she constantly trying to belittle and humiliate my future husband. I have lived with this man for 2 years, I have shared so many things with him during this time, and I am certain I know better what kind of man he is. I know how hard it was for him to heal all his trauma, I know how hard he worked day by day to become the best version of himself, I know how much he loves me, protects me, supports me, and I simply lose it when I hear her crap and how she is constantly trying to bring him down. Yes, I go bear mode when he is involved, as someone told me in the comments, but I don't care. I will not allow any of my family members to abuse the person I love. I may have tolerated things for my brother's sake, but I will never be quiet in front of his *h of a wife. I told my brother that I love him and I will always cherish the memories I have with him, but we cannot go on like this. I understand he is a victim and I am ready to do anything for him if he is willing to accept that his marriage is not good, that Ella is not a good woman and is abusing him. I cannot force him to divorce her because this has to be his choice, but I told him I will accept his decision no matter what that is. He will always be my brother, but George is my family now. We plan on having kids in the near future and there is no way in hell I will ever allow his lunatic of a wife to be near my kids. I also refuse to subject George to the abuse. We tried. We thought that this rough period will eventually pass and that everything will be okay, but unfortunately Ella became more and more bitter and disgusting. We will still see my parents, but I am standing my ground and will not go to their house if she is present. David and I cried a lot, and for the first time in many years I felt like I had my brother back. He apologized over and over again and explained a lot of things to me which gave me the chance to understand him better. But at the same time I am so angry that I had no idea what was happening to my brother. Some people said that David was a rebound for Ella, but it seems they were both a rebound for the other. What made them marry so fast was the age pressure. My brother was feeling like it was very hard to connect with someone, and the prospect of being able to have a family of his own seemed very far away until Ella came and offered him the possibility to have exactly what he wanted without too much struggle. So yeah, in the end I guess we are all some messed up people in a way or another. I don't know what's going to happen. David said he plans to take some time, go away alone for a couple of days and think what he wants to do. But he said that when he'll be back he wants to have a chat with George to apologize to him as well for everything that has happened. My brother knows that everything Ella says is false. He said everyone is able to see how much George loves me and that we make a great couple, and there are times when he wished to also have something like this in his life. He told me he is proud of the woman I have become and that no matter what happens, I will always be his little sister. After this I went home and cried some more with George besides me. I have tried to play strong and denied myself to feel hurt for so long that yesterday I have finally exploded. But it was good because now I feel better. Hey. It's been some time since my last update and I kept receiving questions about what's new with my family drama, so I decided to update once again. TLDR, my brother David is divorcing his wife and we found out a lot of details about her. As expected, she is not taking the divorce lightly. As planned, David did take some time for himself and went to a retreat cabin for a week. He went there alone because he wanted to have the space and time to rethink his life choices. This was exactly what he told Ella, but left out the location because he did not want to risk her showing up there. The first day he was away, Ella contacted my parents and me to ask us about my brother's location. We did not disclose anything. On Wednesday that week I was contacted by some of my brother's friends. They wanted to know if my brother was okay and if it was true that David was cheating on Ella. Initially I was very confused on why would they think that, but they told me that Ella has been going around complaining to people that my brother was cheating on her and that his family were on board with it and covering up his affair. I told my bro's friends that this was not true, but I decided to be petty, so I went on social media, uploaded a photo of me with my brother and wrote how proud I am of him that he is taking this time to focus on mental health and his well-being. Some hour later Ella called me and demanded I take down my post because I was embarrassing her. I played dumb and asked her why would a post dedicated to my brother would ever embarrass her. She never answered, never admitted to lying, and I never took down my post. It will stay where it is for posterity. After my brother returned from the retreat he asked me, George and my parents to meet up at our parents' place and talk. He apologized for everything that happened with his wife and told us a lot of things about Ella. Apparently, she is a very jealous person and she has a constant need to put others down so she can look better or feel superior. Bro gave us a lot of examples of shitty things she did, including to some of her relatives and supposed friends. One of her female cousins works for a transport company, so most of her colleagues at work are men. Ella told this cousin's husband that there are high chances of her cousin cheating since she spends every day surrounded by men. Her cousin was pregnant at that time and I don't know if she was trying to imply the baby may not be her husband's, but still. Needless to say they don't speak to Ella anymore. She had a girlfriend who got into a relationship with a guy. Ella kept telling this girl bad things about her partner that she supposedly heard from other people. She was never able to tell who she heard it from, most likely she invented everything. That's why her family members avoid her and never invite her to functions, and she does not have any friends. People from their circle were friends with my bro before he married her, so they are just tolerating her for his sake. I mentioned that Ella must be abusing my brother and a lot of people took it the wrong way. When I mentioned abuse, I did not mean it as physical abuse, but more like emotional abuse. I guess everyone has their own way of seeing things, but for me being married and still being pissed about things that happened with your ex years ago is clearly a sign of disrespect towards your spouse. And if someone is able to openly disrespect their spouse over and over again in front of their family, it's a high chance for that person to do more than disrespect behind closed doors. My bro clearly struggles to see his self-worth at the moment, and this is also the reason why he accepted too many things from his wife. But we will be with him, always support him and remind him what an awesome guy he is. Also, many people were outraged and called me an AH for calling my brother an idiot. I don't know if all of your families and relationships are like those you see in commercials, but in real life siblings fight, and sometimes when they fight, they may call each other's names. This doesn't mean I don't love my brother or that I don't respect him. But if I see him acting like an idiot, I will always say it to his face and explain why I think he is an idiot. I apologized for calling him an idiot, and he said there is no need to apologize because he expects me to always be honest with him even if sometimes the truth may hurt. And I understand because I expect the same from him. Anyways, David confronted Ella with everything that she has been doing and told her she needs to get help. She refuses to accept she has any problem. She states that everything that she has ever done came from a place of love and care for that person, right? Because when you care for your cousin you lie to her husband that she may be cheating on him, or when you care for your SIL you lie to everyone that she is forced to do drugs by her partner. She did not take the divorce well, but not because she was losing my brother, but because she saw this as a failure that shattered her perfect image she had of herself. Maybe after some time passes I will actually be able to feel sorry for her because she is a sad person with so many issues that refuses to get help. Of course, Ella blamed the divorce on me and our family, claiming that David is choosing us over her. So clearly she does not take any kind of responsibility for her actions. David however warned her that if she continues spreading lies about our family, we will hire a lawyer and take legal actions against her. At the end of the day, if she still insists with her crap, she will have to prove everything in court. Of course we don't want to get to this, but she needs to understand that we cannot say whatever we want about other people and not face the consequences. In the meantime, George and I are planning our wedding and my bro will be George's groomsman. They really had the chance to bond and even discovered they actually have a lot in common. I don't want to be mean, but ever since Ella is out of the picture, our family gatherings happen more often than before and the atmosphere is so light. My brother is slowly going back to his old self. He is having a good time with us, no stress, no dissociating, he is just present and enjoying. So that's it for now. I don't know if this was the update you were expecting, but I can say I am happy. We are slowly healing from everything that had happened these past years, and I am positive that in the end we will be closer and stronger than before. Stories number 46. Would I be the asshole if I don't tell my fiancé the truth before our marriage? I'm 25F and my fiancé is 25M. We have been together for 4 years. My fiancé is religious, I'm not, despite that he and his family accepted me. At first his mom was against me and against dating itself, but eventually she accepted me and we have a very close mother and daughter-like bond. Our families accept each other and we got engaged 4 months ago. Me and my fiancé didn't have sex yet. He's always wanted to wait till we get married. He still thinks that I'm a virgin. I lied to him and told him that I was, but the truth is I'm not a virgin. I had a boyfriend before I met my fiancé, but he just used me for sex and dumped me. I was serious with X. But now I feel guilty for lying to him. He's possibly the sweetest and most caring man I have ever seen, and I don't want to lose him. I feel like if I told my fiancé the truth there's a chance he might leave me. I know he might not cause he loves me as well, but I still fear he might and I don't want to lose him, but I feel guilty for lying to him. This lie is eating me for inside. So am I the asshole for lying to him, or would I be the asshole if I don't tell him the truth? My best friend knows the truth and she says there's nothing wrong with lying to him as it's not a big deal, but I feel guilty. Update. Hi, I'm in need of advice like never before. I posted here 9 days ago. I am 25F and he's 25 as well. We have been dating for past 4 years. He and his family is religious, me and mine aren't. It took me a while to win his family's trust. They were against me and against dating itself, but I was able to win his mom. But I had lied to him that I was a virgin because I was in a very serious relationship, but my ex ended up using me for my body and dumped me, so I was already very sad and found my now finance. I love him very much and didn't want to lose him over something I couldn't change, so I hid it from him because I knew I would never be able to find a man like him ever. I was feeling very guilty for lying to him and I posted here, but I couldn't hold it in me any longer, so 5 days ago, I told him the truth. I told him that I had been lying to him for years and I'm not a virgin. Many advised me to not tell him, but I couldn't get over my guilt. He was shocked like never before. He asked me if I was joking. I said no, I am not joking. He looked so disappointed and shocked it made me cry. He asked me why am I telling him now after all these years. I said I couldn't get married on lies. I told him I lied because I loved him and I didn't want to lose him, but I also couldn't get married to him on lies. He didn't say anything for a while. I broke the silence and asked him to tell me what he's thinking. would you not get married to me after knowing this? He said that he isn't breaking our engagement and is going to get married to me, but he needs time to get over it all. He said he never expected something like this. I said that it's not a big deal and not worth ruining our lovely life over. It's gone and happened years ago. He said that what will he say to his parents if they find out about this? I said they don't need to know and might never know. I hugged him and said in his ears, would he finally be willing to have sex with me? It's been 5 years almost. It's time we have sex for the first time. Without hesitation he said no, he won't, not yet. He said he is still getting married to me but he needs time, but the thing is he isn't replying or acting the way he used to before I told him the truth 5 days ago, so when I couldn't find anything else, I called his cousin who has become a good friend of mine over these years and told her everything. We met and she told me that she's not a virgin either but hit it. She said that we both should go talk to him, so today we both met him. And his cousin consoled him and said that it's not a big deal and it's all in the past and she knows that my fiancé is hurt but it's not worth breaking everything me and my fiancé fought so hard for. He said that he is not breaking the engagement. His cousin said then he shouldn't react the way he is reacting towards me. She said that to my fiancé that we should finally have sex and enjoy life. Sex might deepen our love and help him get over what he is feeling. He said no, not until marriage. He promised me that we are getting married but he will stick to his morals. Now I'm feeling so sad and broken that I can't even think straight. I'm so stressed. I know my fiancé promised me and I know he loves me. I trust him with my life and so he does. He would never lie to me or hurt me. If he didn't want to get married to me he would have just refused, but he didn't. But I can't see him like this. I want to hug him and kiss him and hurt him in the bed and enjoy rest of my life with him. If I could I would like to rush the wedding, but how can I help him get over this? I consulted with my best friend and she said if I had just kept my mouth shut we would have both lived a great life. I did nothing but hurt him by telling him something he didn't need to know and it didn't make any difference except strained our relationship. I mostly regret my decision, but I'm glad that I'm no longer lying to the man I don't deserve and the only man I love the most. I just pray he doesn't leave me and we both get over this. Update. First of, please do not insult my soon-to-be husband. He's the best I could ever hope for as a husband. He's religious but he never imposed his belief on me. I understand that I fucked up by lying to him for 5 years and I shouldn't have, but I did and I was guilty, so I came clean to him. I also understand that he was hurt and he thought that I was a virgin as well like he is, but I betrayed him. It's not his fault but mine, and also I do not care if the sex with him is good or not. I just want him. Today in the morning he called me and said that he wants to talk to me. He said it's better if we just talk instead of just getting angry and ignoring each other. I sent him texts ever since. He asked me to give him some time to think every few hours about how sorry I was for lying to him and asked for forgiveness, and he himself came to me to talk. He asked me why I lied to him and I told him the truth. I told him that I love him very much and I didn't want to lose him and I regret having sex. My lovely soon-to-be husband said that he wouldn't break off the engagement and would still marry me, but I shouldn't have lied and it's too late for him to break off the engagement because he loves me just as much as I do and our families will question us. I immediately hugged him. What hurt me the most is his questions. He asked me if I liked being with my ex and if I enjoyed it and do I miss him and would I be able to enjoy it with him, and the worst was that he asked me did I go back to him or anyone else to be intimate. I started crying. He hugged me and said he didn't mean to hurt me, he was just asking. I understood where he came from. I am his first woman and I said he doesn't have to feel or think the way he is feeling and I will help him understand how it all works. I was crying and asked him if I could give him a kiss on his lips and he agreed. I gave him a kiss and I was still crying. He hugged me and said he will not leave and he loves me too much to do so. I love him so much. I cannot wait to have sex with him for the first time. I will definitely hurt him in bed and expose him to how the sex works and pleasure him so much that he would never even think about leaving me. He's mine and mine alone. He might be bad but I will train him and make him understand that I love him way too much to leave, and train him how the sex works and he doesn't have to worry about me cheating on him. I'm posting again to ask for advice and asking others if I'm going too far and is my lovely soon-to-be husband is being pressured because of me. Stories number 47. Am I the asshole here if I don't want to go on vacation with my friends because they try to micromanage the expenses? I, 30M, have a group of 5 friends from university who are around the same age as me. For the past 2 years, we've gone on vacation together, first to Mexico and then last year to Egypt. We've always had a great time, and we get along well. However, when it comes to sharing costs, I find myself struggling. It's not the group that has an issue, it's me who has the problem. To provide some context, we all met at university 9 years ago and have been working for the last 5 years. Our university was ranked number 1 in the country at the time, though I no longer keep track of the rankings, and we all landed jobs just a month after graduation. I mention this to illustrate that we are all financially secure. I know for a fact that each of us earns between €80,000 and €100,000 annually. In terms of vacation costs, I typically spend around $3,000 for each trip, which is more than my friends spend since I'm more comfortable with spending Additionally, I'm aware that the vacation money we receive amounts to at least double what any of them has spent on these trips. So this is the problem I have. Every night, they ask for a check, start checking off items for everyone, and then make that person pay exactly that amount. To me, that's embarrassing, getting nasty looks from the waitress who doesn't make in a day what these people make in an hour, waiting there for 10 to 15 minutes while they argue about who had what, and then starting to count bills and coins to pay. I suggested we split the bill 5 ways, but they don't want to do that. They have mentioned that I'm the only one who drinks alcohol with dinner and that it's not fair if they have to pay extra for it. We are talking about maybe €2. I even offered to pay more, but they still refused because some are not big eaters and don't think they should pay extra for others. It's 4 versus 1. To make matters worse, they spent every night comparing Uber bills because, maybe I paid a couple of euros less for the ride. So now they are planning a trip for this year, and it could be the last one as some of them want to start families, but I'm thinking of saying no, I can't do this anymore. I enjoy our trips, but getting a pay request of €3 because I had a couple of glasses of rum someone else bought at the supermarket at our hotel messes with my mood. But I'm also the only one who has a problem with this, and I want to ask if I'm the asshole or if this is just a really strange way to handle finances. Edit. People keep asking why we don't ask for separate checks, and the answer is that most places we visit refuse to split the bill into 5. Also, some people think I want them to pay for my drinks at dinner, but I have offered to pay for my drinks, even if we split the bill. Edit 2. People keep asking how drinking alcohol is only a couple of euros more expensive. It's because while I drink a beer or two, they drink Coke or some other soft drink. So, at the end of the day, I had 2 beers, and someone else had 2 Cokes. Yes, the beer is more expensive, but only a couple of euros compared to the Coke. Also, some people think I'm a big eater, but I'm not the biggest eater in our friend group. I take ADHD meds, and if you use those, you know what it does with your appetite. Also, my share of the bill is always one of the lowest unless we stay long and I drink more, but again, I offer to pay for those drinks myself. Edit 3. People keep asking why I don't pay the whole bill and then split it later. I suggested that we try it. But then that night, people started arguing about who had what, and there were items on the bill nobody said they had ordered. So they went back to do it at dinner so there would be no discussions about who had what. Stories number 48. My new housemates stink of lavender. The house was cheap for what it was. Modern build. Sliding glass doors. 4 bedrooms. Free Wi-Fi. But it stunk of lavender. My roommates were friendly, early 20s. Jonas was handsome, dark brown hair and freckles, but extremely awkward. I made the mistake of greeting him one morning, and he stood, startled, like a deer caught in headlights. Stella, a pretty redhead, locked herself in her room. Rudy was the final roommate, sandy blonde hair and freckles. He spent 4 hours trying to justify the earth being flat. All 3 were introverted. The next day, however, I woke in Jonas's bed, in lavender-scented bedsheets. Good morning, his head was nestled in my shoulder, and I found my body moving without me, leaning forward and kissing him. No matter how much my body told me something was wrong, that I had to get out, somehow, a playful laugh escaped my numb lips when his mouth slipped down my torso, and somehow it felt good. I knew it wasn't supposed to. I barely knew this man, or how and why I was in his bed. But it felt good. Jonas wore a lazy smile, eyes half-lidded. Breakfast? Downstairs, Rudy and Stella were in the kitchen, their arms wrapped around each other. Again, 2 strangers who barely spoke to each other. Well, look who it is, Stella grinned. She smelled of lavender. It's the lovebirds. Jonas snatched a slice of toast. Well, maybe we're just better. Really? Rudy smirked. Are we really having this conversation? I found myself laughing, but I didn't know why I was laughing. I kept laughing. Days went by. Weeks. Months. I woke up in Jonas's bed with a giant grin on my face. Sometimes Rudy's. I stopped noticing I was bleeding, and that we were drowning in lavender. Blood dripped down my chin, warm and wet. I got bigger, my belly expanding, my smile widening, my thoughts. I gave birth choking on lavender, inside the basement, surrounded by infant screams. Everywhere I looked, babies in cots lining each wall. A woman loomed over me, her lips grazing my ear. Don't worry, Eve. She whispered, cradling my little one. Stella was across the room, writhing under Velcro straps. The shadowy woman's voice was gentle, telling her to push. You're part of something beautiful. I was pulled from the bed, the stitches in my stomach barely healed. You've all done so well with providing me with children, so far. Mommy is so proud. Needles pricked my skull, and I was dragged back upstairs. A guy was shoved next to me, his eyes were blank. Adam. I remembered when he was Lucas. Kai. Roman. Cain. Jonas. Another Adam stumbled into me, dead eyes staring forwards. An Eve, who could barely walk straight, clumsy stitches holding her belly together. Lavender choked the air, and my brain turned to. The house was surprisingly cheap for what it was. Modern build with sliding glass doors. 4 bedrooms. Free Wi-Fi. Stories number 49. MIL, 57F, gifted me, 30F, a picture of me having a seizure as an anniversary day present, laughed, calling it silly and years of abuse. I decided to go no contact. How do I support my husband, 30M, as his family is pretending this is out of nowhere? Listener write in I'm, 30F, writing about my decision to go no contact with my husband's family, specifically his mother, 57F, who has been emotionally manipulative and abusive towards me for years. My husband, 30M, is supportive, but confused how to navigate this, and I'm struggling to support him without getting angry. As much as I'm working on people-pleasing, he's working on retaining a working memory of all the horrible things she done. But he does use notes when he needs to. He has done his best to call out his mom, hold her accountable, and enforce boundaries, but she is very good at emotionally abusing him into confusion, fear, and heartache. Both of our responses are rooted in trauma responses if you could keep this in mind. Reddit has both helped us grow in the past, so we turn to you for guidance again. Before my husband and I even met, my MIL spread false rumors about me to over 90 people in his community, friends, family, and neighbors, claiming I was a drug dealer and other outrageous things. This would last from 2016 to 2019, I was subjected to bullying and hostility based on her lies. We later learned she was orchestrating these attacks, telling people to disrespect me, and she would gather intel about me to ensure these attacks cut deep. His brother, 3 friends, all his aunts, 3 uncles, 1 grandparent, and a majority of his mother's friends confirmed privately and in groups that there was a conspiracy run by his mother to make me feel as worthless and rejected as possible so I would leave my husband. Years later, she also admitted to running this conspiracy against me but did not care to apologize or hear how it caused psychological harm and tensions in the relations. Thankfully, my self-esteem has grown and I would not stay in a situation like this now. The reason people came clean to me was either because they realized that I was a kind and helpful person, or they found me crying in a stairwell, room, or outside the event as a result of how hostile I was being treated. In fact, many of them realized I was a good listener and started to come to me for advice or coping skills strategies since I worked as a social worker assistant. It was during these talks, I started to piece together that many people in her community were targets of hers at some point. Although my now husband and I almost broke up 12 times as a result of these coordinated attacks, we really held on tighter to the fact that it didn't matter what his community thought of me, because we were very much in love. For him, I helped him discover and embody the person he always wanted to be. I gave him confidence to be himself, as his community often gossiped and bullied people when they were different. For me, he helped me cope with the abuse I was experiencing at home. Over the years he has done his best to protect me from her. We tried many conservations with her, low contact, and him seeking therapy. All of his siblings believe she is narcissistic and found some guidance in surviving narcissistic parent support groups. He has since greatly distanced himself from his community, and I stopped showing up once the conspiracy was revealed and processed by us. After she vowed to never talk about me again, people confirmed she stopped, her psychological games changed. She has insulted me regularly, yelled at me over trivial things, and even tried to control my every move. Often when we were in her town, she would have my FIL, who is a cop, patrol to see if I was there, or so she claimed. It's likely her husband just gave her a casual update. She'd call my husband to scream about me visiting places she disapproved of, even if it was just a friend's house or his grandmother's. She also would regularly call to guilt trip, lie, gaslight, or berate me or my husband if we were not doing what she wanted for holidays or events. If my husband ignores her, she would often yell at me. The reason she found out I was no contact was because my husband was ignoring her trying to plan things for Thanksgiving and she was attempting to call me. She used the excuse to check up on my pregnancy, but I am several months pregnant, with our first, and had no interest in checking up on me earlier, thank goodness. She views her traumatizing me with social psychological warfare as resolved because she admitted to my husband and promised to stop. I never felt safe or comfortable around them since finding everything out, and she refuses to discuss the matter with me, saying it's in the past. My thoughts often go to, if they were capable of that, what else? If they did that, then, what's next? For years she constantly undermined me, yelling at me privately, criticizing my decisions. and attempting to sabotage our wedding plans and my wedding day by inciting drama within the family. It took my husband and I 5 years to get married after being engaged because she made the wedding planning process very difficult and stressful. She interfered at every stage of the process, from spreading false rumors to stirring up conflict about our choices. Even minor things like our wedding invitations became a battleground for her control. She insisted on participating in the first looks between me and my husband right next to us, when we offered for her to look out from the hotel. She yelled at me and my maid of honor when we asked her to go back. Her response was to bring out her entire family, ruining an intimate moment. Her controlling and manipulative behavior has deeply affected my mental and physical health, triggering anxiety and even seizures. I grew up in an abusive family with a high ACE score of 9/10, so her actions felt like a continuation of the trauma I'd been trying to escape. Over time, I developed functional neurological disorder, leading to 30 seizures a day at one point. My husband has been a huge source of strength in my life. When we first started dating, he helped me distance myself from my abusive family. He stood up to my brother when he was physically harming me and supported me when I went no contact with my father. He believed me when I shared what I had been through as a child, and he gave me the courage to heal. He introduced me to healthy experiences like spending time at parks and socializing with people who had no connection to his mom, helping me slowly overcome my fear of people after years of being isolated by my own abusive family. He's always been my #1 cheerleader and supports me each step of my healing journey. This August, after countless attempts to have productive conversations with her about boundaries and respect, for the last 9 years, I reached my breaking point. She took a picture of me seizing at our wedding brunch despite our pleas to stop. She then gave me that photo as an anniversary gift, laughing as if it were funny. This was just the final straw in years of mistreatment. She denies that we told her not to take the picture and says she took it because her and her husband have a photo of them on a horse carriage that they rode away in. My husband and I were leaving by golf cart because I was suffering from medical distress seizures. This is a clear reminder that she not only didn't respect me, but that she reveled in my suffering. Now that I've gone no contact, my husband is supportive but confused. He keeps asking if this decision is because of that one incident with the picture or the culmination of everything. I keep explaining that it's everything, years of her yelling at me, belittling me, spreading lies, and controlling our lives, but he's still struggling to fully grasp the depth of it. His family is now acting like this is out of nowhere, which only adds to his confusion. She definitely has been made aware of how she makes me feel. Although his siblings respect and understand how I feel, they recognize their mother as being toxic, they still think I imply I should put up with it. However, this is a regular toxic pattern of behavior in her family. There is triangulation, passive-aggressive comments, gossiping, guilt-tripping, gaslighting, enmeshment, and straight-up lying to manipulate others. She has pushed away her in-laws, that have known her for several years, and speaks so viciously of every partner of her children. Oftentimes her behavior leads into an aggressive and verbally abusive confrontation that makes people never speak to her again. I fear that I have reached that point that if I were to ever speak to her again, I could not be civil or polite. I have always taken her abuse politely with a comment that we will have to discuss this later. And we would, yet there would be no response or understanding from her. She just pretends everything is okay. Often doubling down. My husband is trying to point out these toxic patterns of behavior as the reason I'm distancing myself from her and his family until they are no longer present or a majority of the dynamics. If she did something appealing every once in a blue moon, and we were able to connect with them or have fun, I'd be willing to keep trying. I don't know how else to describe this, so forgive me for the rudeness of it. But it seems whenever she is around me she is so tense, like she is full of constipation of anger, stress, and hatred towards me. She only relaxes after she lets out her true nasty side. Usually in passive-aggressive or very clearly planned out attacks. If she is confronted with this behavior she cries, plays the victim, and honestly it is very exhausting. I was hoping Reddit can help with some advice, resources, or other tools my husband can use to try and explain over the next few weeks as we going on vacation to our home state. I'm afraid we will not find a therapist in time to arm my husband with an ironclad set of skills and boundaries to prepare for the shit storm that is awaiting him on vacation. I'm a couple years ahead of my husband in coming to terms with his family and hope. So I recognize and respect how he wants to keep trying. It was Reddit arming me during the confrontation about the gossiping that really helped me realize it's time to go low contact. TLDR, my MIL has done appalling things for years. After gifting me a picture of me having a seizure, I decided to go no contact. My husband's family is saying it's coming out of nowhere and it was not an offensive thing to do. I'm hoping for some guidance on how to support my husband while he waits for a therapist and visits his family in a few weeks for Thanksgiving without me. Edit. Thank you to everyone for your comments and support. I've saved all the helpful advice and resources, and my husband and I will read and discuss them together. Some have asked for an update, and I will share one in the future. I'm not concerned if his family finds this. To add some context, we moved abroad last year, and I haven't had much interaction with his family for a while. During the first 2 years of our relationship, I was frequently around his community, but by year 3 I stopped attending events, and after year 5, due to COVID, I only saw his parents occasionally. Last year we got married and moved, which went up to maybe 20 times over 4 months. Since moving I've only seen them for about 6 days since then. Before going no contact, I only spoke to them briefly a few times this year. All this to say, we've steadily marching towards me not speaking to them and avoiding them. Stories number 50. I, 32F, read my, 34M, fiancé's personal texts with his best friend. How do I move on from this? I know, no excuses, I breached his personal space, I fucked up. Now I might be spiraling. I don't know how to feel and what to do. After lunch, he and I had our usual chats, so I took the chance to ask him about something. I told him that I saw him paying extra attention to someone I'm close to. While she was over, I saw him observing her for quite a while, and so I asked him if there was anything there for him. Mind you, I asked him calmly and in the best way I can without it sounding like he did anything wrong. I genuinely wanted to know what he had in his mind. He said he didn't even realize he was doing that and apologized, and we just sort of finished talking about it. I'm usually the type of person who's always trusted their gut feeling, so I felt like something was off with him after that conversation. I don't know what led me to do it. Deep insecurities or just distrust or both. When he went out, I looked at his messages on his laptop. I needed to know if somehow there's something he's not telling me. I decided to open the chat with his best friend, and now I can't unread it all. His best friend, let's call her Mia, apparently deeply dislikes me. We've never met, so she's only got stories from him to go by, making an impression of me. I feel like I've either been living a lie or have been delusional this whole time, because she seems to think I'm making his life harder for him, and what hurt the most was that he seems to be the one fueling it. I get her anger. If I was told by my best friend that she was mistreated, taken for granted or unappreciated, I'd be angry too. My fiancé and I have had our fights, yes. And part due to my insecurities. I've been vulnerable and upfront with him when I stray into those dark places. I know I'm not an easy person to love. That's always been with me, so when I met him, I really thought and still do think, he's my person. But everything I read hurt so much. He'd tell Mia things like I almost stole someone's girlfriend, I'm such a whore. She's insecure again. This was after I told him jokingly don't cheat on me when he went out to the club and I stayed in. And scrolling further I found him venting to Mia about a fight we had with him, saying this bitch is insecure again. It shocked the living hell out of me, cause I recall that fight. To my face he presented himself to be calm and forgiving, but when he's describing it to Mia, it's something totally different, with him even saying I just need to survive until the end. I didn't see one exchange where he said nice things about our relationship. To be fair, they call sometimes too and exchange voice notes, but as far as the texts are concerned, nothing nice about us at all. I feel like I lived a totally different reality to what he lived. I felt loved, I felt joy. Aside from those rare fights, we really do lean and support one another. I want to marry him one day. But does he feel the same? With me he is so loving and caring, more than anything I could ever ask for, but how he's venting off about our fights and how he's not even once defended me when Mia speaks so ill about me. Is this really the kind of man who wants to marry me? I know I won't get sympathy, and really, I'm not asking for it. But please tell me, is this normal for people to do? Those who love your partners to bits, do you vent about them like this to close friends? I just need to know. TLDR, I read my fiancé's text with his best friend and found out his BF hates my guts and he vents about me to her after fights we have, at one point calling me a bitch. Stories number 51. Entitled Theme Park Customer Pushes Emergency Stop on Roller Coaster. Hi everyone. This happened about a month ago, but I still tell this story because I just find it ridiculous that this kid did this. So, I work at a theme park as a roller coaster operator. A little bit of background about the coasters I work. They have 3 control panels, 2 down on the platform where the customers get on off the coasters, 1 main control panel in a separate room overlooking the coaster platform. A month or so ago, while I was working a shift, I was working a coaster's main control panel. When I opened up the gates to let the customers into the coaster, a teenager decided to press the emergency stop on one of the platform panels while he was getting into the coaster, while the coaster operators on the platform had their backs turned. We ended up having to close the ride for like 10 to 15 minutes while we restarted the ride. My on-shift supervisor, who was in the main control panel room, called security, who were luckily close by. The teen got kicked out of the park. Man, I was so mad. Stories number 52. Am I overreacting? My 36F, fiancé, 40M, deleted texts with his ex-wife. I want to call off the wedding. My fiancé and I have been together almost 2 years. We got pregnant and have a 9-month-old, which is why things have been on the fast track with us. We live together and co-parent well. Here's the deal. He was married before to a woman he basically grew up with. They got together in their late teens, early 20s and were finalizing their divorce when I met him. I was extremely reluctant to get into a relationship with him because of this, but he convinced me. I do love him very much and have enjoyed our relationship. I don't have any issue with him talking to his ex. But she has made it clear that she misses and still loves him. She, BTW, carried on a relationship, unclear if physical or just emotional, with her now boyfriend, who is also the father of her 10-month-old baby. I know, ridiculous. Her continued love and wanting him, coupled with the fact that I have been surprised in the past when finding out how much they communicate, has made me ask that he be transparent when they do talk. I asked for him to tell me, and if I want, be okay with showing me the messages. He agreed. I don't know if that makes me an asshole. I have never had these demands in past relationships, but I also haven't felt uneasy like this. Today I discovered that there are deleted messages between the two of them, 6 total. I don't know what they said, I'm not interested because it's the deception that bothers me. The hiding. I'm disgusted and want to call off our wedding. I feel deceived. How can I trust him? Update. I read the messages. There was nothing insidious or hurtful, friendly convo about a baby supply drive. I explained to my so why I'm so upset, and told him I want to delay the wedding. I explained that the biggest problem isn't the fact that they talked but rather that he hid it from me. He is extremely apologetic. He said he deleted them primarily because he knew he shouldn't be carrying on a convo with her and that he didn't want it to blow up, but understands that this is way worse than just being transparent. We talked about how neither of us really trust each other. I don't trust him to be fully transparent, he doesn't trust me to give him the benefit of the doubt, although I'm not going forward with the wedding until I feel better. We are going to go to couples counseling. He agreed to go NC with his ex, he offered, and blocked her phone and email. So time will tell. Stories number 53. Am I the asshole for breaking it off with a girl based off her needs and wants? I, 31 male, had matched with this woman, 28 female, on Facebook dating. We talked for a month before. I finally decided to ask her out so we can meet in person. The first date went well and we decided that we wanted to see each other again. On the second date, we ended up doing a double date with one of her friends. And when I was driving her home, she started crying. As anyone would, I made sure she was okay and she informed me that she's very emotional and that if I was to date her, then I would need to keep Kleenexes in my car in case she just starts crying. She also informed me that I should also keep protein bars in my car if we are driving for a long period of time and she gets hungry. I was a little thrown off by, but didn't think much of it. On the third, and what would be the final, date, she had asked me when we could make it official. I gave a simple answer of, I would like to spend more time with you just so I can get to know you a little bit more before I make that decision. In reality, I was wondering why she was asking me this so soon. When I got home, we were texting each other and I said, what else are you looking for in a man? She then sent me a list of what I should do to please her. A lot of it was very simple stuff, but after reading it, I felt as if a lot of it wouldn't have any meaning if I did it because I am required to do it as a man. Example would be setting up spontaneous dates or giving words of affirmation. She also told she cannot apply for a green card as she went through her student visa and tourist visa. So her only option for staying in the country would be to marry an American. I thought it over and I told her that I cannot be this guy she is looking for because everything I do from here on out would not have any sentimental meaning and the American status portion was offsetting. She tried to paint me as the bad guy for not wanting to talk it out, and I just ended up ignoring her altogether. Am I the asshole? Edit. For context, the other stuff she was asking of me or to allow her to be a passenger princess, slow dancing in the kitchen, random. I appreciate you messages etc. Just kind of the normal stuff a guy should be doing in a relationship, but this feels like it is forced and as I said earlier, it really wouldn't have much meaning. Also, I read most of your responses. I appreciate the feedback. She was pretty upset that I told her that I'm not gonna be this guy that's going to do all these things for her. I told her if I do any of this, then it's because I mean it, not because it's required. As for the green card situation, she was telling me that she was not strictly dating me just to get one, but the fact that it was mentioned on the third date was kind of weird. When I asked her, what am I gonna be getting out of this relationship if this goes forward, and I'm not talking strictly about sex, I got an answer. I would leave small notes around your house or in your car and would do almost the same thing as what I asked of you. Stories number 54. Am I the asshole for asking my uncle to adopt me? Am I the asshole having my uncle adopt me? So this is the backstory. I don't have a good relationship with either one of my parents. To give a brief summary, my father is an alcoholic and a druggie. Did not provide worth a shit while I grew up, had me and my mother kicked out and I had to live in a homeless shelter. And a laundry list of other inexcusable stuff I'm not gonna list. My mother is a drunk that kicked me out several times while I lived with her when I was in high school, has tried to physically hit me. Didn't work out too well as when she tried last time because I wouldn't stop to let her buy liquor. After I worked a 12-hour shift she tried to sucker punch me in the back of the head. When I was faced the other way I turned around and I cracked her in the chest and broke 2 ribs. Both were very unfaithful while they were together. She would also fuck men while I was in the room next door loudly and told me to put headphones on or to get the fuck out of her house, and she's made me work with her at whatever job she had for shifty pay my entire childhood. And last time I worked with her she got drunk and fired me and my girlfriend at 1 in the morning because she got drunk and took every source of income in my house away from me on a whim. There's more but I won't get into it. This is the issue. My father has been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and is dying, and even though my relationship with him isn't great, I've been trying to mend it because he's dying. My entire life my parents hated each other, saying the other was the devil. I went to go see him the other day and he had told me he had been seeing my mother again and that he was giving her half of everything he had and power of attorney given to her, even though he literally made me promise that when he died I would never let my mother on his property, which he had promised me when he died as I'm his only kid. I can't go a week without some new dumb BS coming my way from either party, and my uncle was always there for me growing up, tried to adopt me, and is who I view as my father. I recently asked him if he would adopt me as his official son as I have some serious stuff going in my life and if I were to die. In the field I work in is very dangerous. I'd like him to be in charge of my things were I to die, and I've always viewed his as my dad anyway. Now I'm feeling bad because I want him to, and it would be after my father dies, but I do have a soul and I know if my dad found out it would crush him. Am I the asshole? Update, I'm 21, I live in the South, and the reason why I want him to adopt me is as a gesture because he's always who I've seen as my father. And for my job I have to write a power of attorney and a will. I'm a first responder, won't say what exactly for safety, but it's pretty dangerous. But I recently proposed to my GF of 2 years yesterday, and I know for a fact if something happened my mother would try to contest my will in an attempt to screw my GF over because she hates her. I was very oblivious to my mother's behavior until I left, and my GF's the person who helped me see her for who she really is. We are also going to be starting a family in the next 10 years, and if something happens to me and my future wife I'd rather my future kids be with my uncle and not my mother.